Hello, we'd like to acknowledge that the land we meet on today is the traditional lands of the Peramunk and Kaurna peoples, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge that the Peramunk and Kaurna peoples are the traditional custodians of the Adelaide Hills and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to those living today. Well, welcome to the National Motor Museum in Birdwood. You can see really, can't you, with the Model T4 behind me. My name's Keith Conlon. For the next 3 hours, please join us for this very special inaugural live stream event that celebrates 40 years of motoring history, the Bay to Birdwood 2020. Now, earlier this morning, we crossed live to Barrett Reserve at West Beach for the start of the Bay to Birdwood. Let's take a look.
Vehicle Makalaka, para macam Carolina. Na wangni mani pundi kali yata na yung yata. Pati iti. Na nari kamati America. Welcome to the lands of the Kaurna people. It's great that you can come to this place today where we stand. And when we come to a place, it's about saying, are we well when we come to this place? But it's also saying, where have we been and what have we been doing? Because our face tells us where we've been, but our heart tells us where to go. And our people have always welcomed people, and we've never said goodbye. We have no word for goodbye, it's only see you later. But today is about the Pagni Faulty, which is about, today is about this rally of these cars, these beautiful old cars, that'll Pananinga which is today they'll leave here and they'll travel from the west to the east to the hills. And my job as a descendant of the Kaurna people is not only to bring great blessing to all of these people that travel in these vehicles today, because the spirit of my ancestors will bring not only the goodness upon them, but to send away that sadness or badness that sometimes can linger upon. But today, I do the smoke as well, because the smoke is about cleansing, it's about new beginnings, and it's also about saying that this spirit of this land will now connect these cars to this land so that when they travel through here, it'll be recognised by the land itself. The gum leaves itself have this medicinal, but also the smell of that land. So I say to them, which is saying we are all brothers and sisters, and that when we walk this land or sit or look or observe upon this land, we do it together, not only in harmony, but realise that cultures never separate us but bring us together. And so it is my pleasure to send these vehicles off, to bless them, and to have a wonderful day as we come to this place. And so I'll blow the smoke over the vehicles as they pass. So, nakara, naitaya, like I said, see you later, and thank you.
Birdwood is done.
Much respected Kaurna elder, his welcome to country is always educational. We thought it was important that something quite significant began this very historic live stream, and of course it's an historic occasion, the 40th anniversary of the Bay to Birdwood. Conditions perfect, albeit a little bit chilly down at the start, but they'll get better and better as they come up through the hills, the beautiful Adelaide Hills, here to Birdwood. Speaking of the start, let's get back there. Here's Steve Davis.
Mickey, the smoking ceremony now toward its closing stages, which means the official launch of the 2020 Bay to Birdwood is happening before our eyes. Glorious weather here too for this 40th anniversary of this historic event. And because of this telecast, one of the beautiful things is that motoring enthusiasts and history buffs around the world get a front row seat of this event. And talking of history, there's a man who's joining us on screen now who is part of the history of this event, Mr. John Croker. He has been a course commentator here at the start and involved himself for more than 35 years. John, what's the feeling now? What's happening inside you as this is about to get underway?
Smiles, Steve. Smiles all round. You can't help but enjoy yourself when there's so many lovely things and lovely people and lovely weather, and all together it's just a fabulous event, another South Australian event.
Now tell me, you've been here so many times, what sort of vehicles are the ones that attract the most attention? Because sadly, because of COVID, no spectators here today.
Yes.
What would they normally be milling around?
Oh, the fabulous feature vehicles, certainly, the Mustangs, the Camaros, the Lincolns, but also the ordinary cars. People, you hear so many people say, oh, my family used to have one of those, or I had one of those, so there's something for everybody here. It's a cliche, I know, but that's true. There's ordinary cars, there's fabulous feature cars, and there's something for everyone.
And one of the things with this event, of course, with older cars, is we have the surprise of whether or not they'll make it. What's your prediction today? Because the weather's turned out beautifully.
Well, we have the RAA, of course.
Yes.
And couldn't live without them.
And look behind you, sorry, we have vehicles leaving. All of a sudden, we have action as the streets now welcome the vehicles of the Bait and Birdwood, and off they go, the constabulary here to patrol.
Led off by the RAA, and the car in front is owned by one of the fellows from Shannon's, and that's a 1948 Mercury. And you'll be delighted by the horns and the hooters and the different sounds that we get from engine notes. Some are quieter than anything. You'll see things that we'll never see again. Cars made in Australia, cars that you can't believe until you stand beside it, like that wonderful, enormous Woody wagon from America.
Yep.
We've got Australian cars, we're going to get American cars, we're going to get European cars, Japanese cars, and that is the essence of the Bay to Birdwood.
And memorable moments as you've been here doing your commentary over the years, where have things gone right, gone wrong? What springs to mind? What are stories you tell around the kitchen table?
The only time something went wrong was with the weather, and it was one of the early ones from down at the end of Anzac Highway, and the weather was not kind on that occasion. It is kind today. I haven't a thing I like to say that God drives a classic car. Thank you for the weather.
And thank you, John Croker, for your involvement and for being on this telecast. We might come back and have a chat with you a little bit later on, because there are other people that we're talking to today, including Dr. Angela Evans, a podiatrist who has been in the Bay to Birdwood once. And what is your steed going to be today?
Oh, look, Steve, I'm really, really enjoying this morning already. I'm in a 1974 stretch moke, which is an absolute head turner. On the way down this morning, I had little kids leaning out of the car saying, "Are you really cold?" I said, "Yeah, it's breezy."
Can you tell me this? I've chatted to a few people about mini mokes. They don't ever have to risk winning awards for easy handling on the road. What was it like driving?
Well, you know, it's just so different. You go back to driving when you were a child, using things like the choke and making sure the mirrors actually sit up. The cornering is pretty interesting. You have to use all of the corner, sort of drive into the apex of the corner, and then braking can be a little fluid. You need to anticipate exactly when you want to stop and use your gears, all those old techniques.
Now, I'm also curious because our Chief Public Health Officer, Professor Nicola Spurrier, is taking social distancing so seriously, she's actually sending her son and I believe her husband in your car.
She is indeed, and in fact, I'm going to chauffeur them. I'll be in the front, they'll be in the back, plenty of fresh air. I have got a rug for them because I think they're going to be, let's say, they'll find it invigorating.
So now, I can't let you leave without one podiatry question.
Oh, okay.
In my research, I discovered there's a thing called driver's foot, that people have soreness because of stiff pedals. Now, some of these vehicles, that's got to be a case. What would your podiatry advice be to drivers of old vehicles?
Well, Steve, I see mainly children, so it's a little out of my zone. They're generally not driving, but, you know, when in doubt, steel cap boots, protect the feet.
And steel cap boots?
Yeah. Well, for those really heavy pedals, yes.
Well, I have to remember that. And finally, the mini moke or the stretch moke you drive, what colour is it?
It's red. It's the fast colour. You'll see it. It really is a really fun vehicle. And this is what a great event. What a fantastic Adelaide, South Australian event, and my cousins in the UK are watching it. I've let everyone know, so yeah, go South Australia, it's fabulous.
Yes, well, all the best with your journey.
Thank you.
Hopefully you successfully make it to the end.
I'm looking forward to it, and I need to go and move the moat.
Oh, yes, you better.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Dr. Angela Evans, podiatrist, who'll be driving, and of course, other doctors have been attracted to this event, including Dr. Toby Coates, who heads up the kidney transplant unit at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. And today, I've been told, Toby, that your bedside manner when people come in for their transplants is to use car love to break the ice. How do those conversations start?
Well, that's a good question, actually. It's more when you try to get something that somebody else is interested in, and then if you've got something similar, then you can actually use that. And I often find with men that it's cars are a very good way to connect with people. Cars and football, they're the two sort of things that you can use. And with ladies, it's usually grandchildren and kids and that sort of stuff. So anyway.
Well, that's good. Now, talking of cars, what are you driving today?
So today we have two cars in today, and my daughter and my son-in-law are taking our Morris Minor, which is a 1959 Morris Minor, beautiful old family car of ours, and that's successfully completed twice now, so it's a good car. And I'm taking the 1927 Standard, which is an open tourer. Was a car that was shipped out as a chassis from the United Kingdom in the mid-20s, in fact 26. And then local coach builders, Duncan and Fraser, built the body. So it's actually an Adelaide car built up on Flinders Street, actually, and it's been here ever since.
And tell me, a little birdie has whispered into my ear to say your wife has given this car a nickname. What is it and why?
Yes. So this car is referred to as Voldemort. It's referred to as Voldemort from Harry Potter because it's the car the name of the car cannot be spoken in front of her. Because I think over the years the amount of time and love and a little bit of money has been put into it.
How much money?
A little bit.
Okay.
Just a little bit.
And have you've taken Voldemort in this event before? Was it a successful outcome?
No, it was not. So on his first run, which was before my daughter, we did it up for my daughter getting married.
Yes.
And so we thought, we'll have a bit of a trial run, at Bay to Birdwood, and it did very well until we got to Gumaraka. And at Gumaraka, we failed to proceed, so we finished it on the back of Dialer Toe, actually, about 3 k's short, which was very disappointing.
Well, I want to help you today because my daughters love Harry Potter, and I have an official Harry Potter wand. And what I would like to do on your behalf, Toby, is this, into the camera, expecto automobilis.
Yes.
So we will see if magic works.
Magic will work.
By the end of the day.
I hope so. I sincerely hope so. Yeah, pretty good.
All right. Well, have fun. Oh, actually, one last question.
Sure.
With this lovely old car, are you tempted to do house calls as a doctor again?
Well, I took it to work on Christmas Day last year, actually, and yeah, I did. So it was a good time to drive into the Royal Adelaide. I could actually get a park. That was nice. So people will identify with, I'm sure.
All right, all the best, and of course you don't have to wish you luck because we've just done the magic spell.
We'll, yeah.
All
to
right.
The other end.
Thank you very much,
Cheerio.
Dr. Toby Coates. And John Croker, if I can get you back onto the screen, one thing that struck me as I'm standing here is, you're not meant to like this, but the smell of fumes as those cars go past, is that part of the magic formula?
Well, perhaps not. If it was Castrol R, a refined oil that used to be used in the likes of the classic motorcycles that we see lined up here.
Yep.
Yes, that gets people excited, but just plain straight old carbon dioxide fumes, maybe not.
Now, as you've been watching while I've been talking to other people, what's caught your eye that's been going past?
The variety. I always love the variety, Steve. We've got everything from Rolls-Royce to Minis to ordinary Australian family cars, Falcons, Holden Kingswoods. You'll never see a variety like this in an event like this anywhere in the world. If you went to America, it'd be all American cars.
Right.
There'd be no European, there'd be no Japanese cars. If you went to Japan, you'd be struggling to find any American cars. So we have the best of the world, something from every part of the world. And we take it for granted. Australia has had so many car makes sold here in Australia over a relatively short period of time and this is the peak of the bunch. And we're doing everything from the beginning, the first veterans and vintages up to the classic cars.
All right, and talking of classics, there is a classic gentleman who has just wandered over towards me to have a chat. And when I say classic, he is the chair of the Bay to Birdwood, Mr. Michael Neal.
Hey Steve, how are you?
We meet again at another Bay to Birdwood.
It is fantastic to see you. Thank you so much for all your support.
I don't know. I've got to ask a question.
Yep.
Because of COVID, no spectators here. No, you always press the flesh and you mingle.
What?
How are you? Yes, there we go.
I'm pressing the elbows.
How have you adjusted? What do you think? The fact that we're creating this visual time capsule, we've got this beautiful weather. Will that compensate?
Do you know what? Have a look at the smile on people's faces.
Yep.
You know, this is one of the world's great historic motoring events, and it's on. And people have got their vehicles out. They're telling their stories. They're sharing their passion with the world, thanks to the live stream. You know, and I think that's a great thing.
What are you driving today? I believe you've got a few cars to choose from. Is the Willis there?
No. Actually, I was going to bring the Willys, but they said to me, would you like to drive the Hudson Straight 8 from the National Motor Museum, which is a very, very rare and interesting car, and actually a lot more fun to drive than the Willys. So I said, yeah, okay. So I'm driving this beautiful car thanks to the National Motor Museum.
You must be nervous enough to be driving that car, but you also have precious cargo on board.
Do you know, it's always nice to have a VIP sitting next to me here.
And can we say who that is?
Well, I don't know.
Yes, we can.
Oh, again?
I believe it's Professor Nicola Spurrier, so you take very good care of her because we all rely on her.
I will, and you know, I understand the enormity of the task in front of me.
Now, talking of which, the Shannon's vehicle went past before. You must be so proud to have Shannon's Insurance as great sponsors.
They've been a wonderful partner, working with us for a long time, and it's always a delight and a pleasure to be working with Shannon's, yeah.
And tell me, the charity that we're supporting this year, the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Yes.
What are we hoping to achieve for them?
Well, I hope we raise some money, and we'll be giving them some money tomorrow, hopefully, a big cheque. I actually think there's a great synergy between the Royal Flying Doctor Service and the Bay to Birdwood. You know, historic motoring and the Flying Doctors, we both sort of helped to open up Australia, and you know, when the car came, when the Flying Doctor came, it meant that we could go deeper into our country. So there's a great synergy.
Talking of going deeper, a tip for next year with the Royal Flying Doctor Service, could they take off in one of their restored Avalons here and land at Birdwood?
Hey, you need to talk to them about that.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll work on that. Please, safe driving on the road. Any tips in driving the old cars to deal with nervousness as you go through the winding hills? No,
I think just be really cautious and enjoy it.
All right. And that's what we're doing. That's what I hope you'll continue to do on this telecast from the 40th Bay to Birdwood.
My pleasure. I hope that was all right.
Thanks very much, Steve. Isn't it great seeing the cars roll away? Welcome again to the Bay to Birdwood in this 40th anniversary edition. And the historic vehicles are moving towards Birdwood at last. It's marvellous that this event even got underway, isn't it, really, in these troubled times. It's very different this year. You might even be able to see it from the pictures from Barrett Reserve. No people, no crowds around today. Very different conditions. The people weren't able to get out of their vehicles unless they really had to. And then along the way, well, we haven't encouraged people to line the route and so on. I'm sure a few people will pop out, but that's what this live streaming event is about. You can see it at home today. Now, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to try some new technology. In some of those vehicles is a totally new piece of equipment for us. I think it's called a mobile phone for the rest of the day, but we're going to actually cross to cars, and we'll do that in just a moment. Then we'll have Lainey Anderson. She will be down at the Gully Hotel, the Tea Tree Gully area, and she will stop some vehicles gently, have a yarn to the people, to talk about their vehicles. This is not just a mobile history, is it? This is actually about people's passion as well. And then, very different at the end. Normally there's a great picnic happens out amongst the gum trees down towards the Onkaparinga at Birdwood. Well, that won't be happening this year because, well, frankly, it's closed. So you can't come to the National Motor Museum today. On the other hand, there's a real plus in this. We're going to give people a chance to take a breather, get their vehicles organised again, and then they're going to head out into the Adelaide Hills. Now, the Adelaide Hills, what a wonderful time to be doing that. Springtime in the hills, the produce is there, the buds are blooming. Food and wine has just taken off in the hills. You could be up here for a month and be having a feed at a different spot. As well as that, of course, there's nature, there's heritage. One of my great loves, let's face it, we're really here at the Birdwood Mill, aren't we, from the 1850s. Now, in a moment, we'll be crossing back. We're going to try it. Oh, I should mention social media. All of this is happening, and it'd be great if we get your responses. What are you seeing? What do you want to hear about? Any comments? Where are you? Of course, this is going internationally. Some people from England, they couldn't make it, so we hope that they're watching the live streaming. So just hashtag on any of the social media. We've got Vivian watching everything. Just hashtag Bay to Birdwood 2020. Hashtag Bay to Birdwood 2020. Now, any moment now, I reckon I'll get permission and we're going to try our first technological feat for the day as there's a lovely Jag coming through right now, isn't it, I think? Because we're going to be crossing to an E-type Jag, to someone who's very familiar with the Bay to Birdwood. What have we got coming through there? We're out on Anzac Highway already. So this is live television. This is the way it's going to be all day. Here they come again, streaming along the Anzac Highway. Hundreds and hundreds of vehicles, and slightly different this year too, because the people who are close to the event will know that it started as the Bay to Birdwood Run 40 years ago, and that was all about what we would, as lay people, talk about vintage cars, really early cars, and then not too many years in, the Bay to Birdwood Classic began, and that was for later vehicles. It allowed for people who've perhaps loved their dad's car or bought something like an FJ or something that it really has become very special in Australian motoring. Well, they're now in the Classic usually. This year it's a combined event. We've got a Bay to Birdwood, which is about all the cars from very early. 1904 is our oldest car, or maybe it's a 1908 today. We'll find out and see who actually made the start line and who got through. We can go, we're going to do it right now in the E-Type Jag, someone who knows a fair bit about it, the feel of the Bay to Birdwood, because she was in the very first. Jane Riley.
Good morning, Keith. Yeah, we're here in the E-Type Jag. You can just see Randall in the background there, but we're just coming up to the crossing Grand Junction Road. Had a really good run from Barrett Reserve. Mate, this is so exciting. I feel like I'm in the Christmas pageant. People are waving at us, and lots of people on the side of the road as well. I know lots of people are watching at home on Channel 44. Even my dad is watching this morning, and it's fantastic that we can take this world-class event to the rest of the world as well today. Down at Barrett Reserve, what got me, Keith, was that every car has a story. So either it's been lovingly restored from almost scrap, or it's a car that's been passed through generations through a family. And to see them all there in their glory this morning was absolutely fantastic.
It looks fantastic, Jane. How's the E-Type travelling today?
Oh, she's singing along. You can hear it probably. She's just having a ball. She loves getting out for a bit of a run. We often take her out on a Sunday morning. We get up quite early, take her for a run through the hills. But I kind of think she's just humming along this morning and sounding wonderful. The driver's not bad himself either there. There's Randall. I have driven the car, but it's quite a different driving experience from a modern car. Firstly, you've got the gears, which, I'm your age, in your generation, Keith, so I know how to drive a manual car. But there's no power steering, and she's a very long bonnet. You've got to anticipate when you're going to stop. But we're getting so many comments. I've had the windows down and we're waving to people, and a guy just called out, he just went, beautiful. And she is a beautiful car, but there are so many other beautiful cars in this event today.
Yeah, this is an historic event and historic vehicles all over the joint. Jane, we're going to come back to you. Thanks very much. Enjoy your trip up through the hills.
We'll see you soon.
Just as you get to the beginning of the Adelaide Hills, there's the famous old gully pub at Tea Tree Gully, of course, and that's where Lainey Anderson is going to be for quite a while this morning. We're going to go back and forth to her, and we reckon her first car has arrived, and she's about to talk. Lainey Anderson.
Hi Keith, and welcome everybody to the gorgeous surrounds of the Gully Hotel in the historic Tea Tree Gully Township. We have got people lining the streets, we've got cars racing by, tooting, waving, we've got people eating bacon and egg sandwiches. It is glorious here today, and haven't we been lucky with the sun? So joining me is Mick Bolognese. He is the Senior Curator at the National Motor Museum and has played a huge part in making today happen. Congratulations, Mick, first of all. But tell us, what was it like organising the event this year?
Oh, look, it had a few challenges for sure with COVID. We had a few hurdles to overcome, but in the end, it's actually made us change the way we do things a bit. Coming to everyone live on the live broadcast is a first, and we think it's really good in the end.
Oh, it's so fantastic, isn't it? Such a great day. So we're about halfway here for the drivers to get to Birdwood. Mick, what can they expect as they leave us now and head into the Adelaide Hills?
Well, they've braved the Sunday morning traffic, so they've now come up to the spot where they enter the hills.
Yep.
They can expect one of the most beautiful scenic drives in South Australia, the Chain of Ponds route, and a few sweeping bends and a few steep hills, but nothing these vehicles can't handle.
And all the contestants today have been urged to get out and enjoy the Adelaide Hills, which is such a fantastic idea after the race. Now, Mick, you were one of the judges in the Concours d'Elegance and the Preservation Awards yesterday. How was that?
It was really great. It was actually probably the strongest field I've ever seen in the judging. So we had about 50 vehicles that were judged. It was a separate event this year. We did it yesterday, and I already know who the winner is. Well, there are 4 winners, 4 categories. They're fantastic. Can't wait to announce them.
It must be so hard to actually do that because the cars are all fantastic. But thank you very much for joining us today, Mick, and you're going to be marshalling cars for the rest of the morning. So thank you very much. And now I'm going to introduce you to an amazing vehicle and an amazing driver in Carmela Orlando. Now Carmela is driving this beautiful 1960 Chevrolet El Camino. Hello, how are you?
Good, thank you.
How's it been this morning?
It's great, yeah, it's been good. Early start, but yeah.
Your car is so fantastic. Don't you get scared that someone's going to scratch it?
No.
No? It looks like you've come just out of a Disney Pixar movie.
I got up very early to get ready this morning. So,
and is the car modelled on one of the cars out of Cars the movie?
Not quite, no. It's probably, if you're looking at Cars the movie, thinking about the Impala, and this car is modelled on the 60 Impala that we do. So.
Now, you love your cars, don't you?
Yes.
This isn't your first one?
No, this is not my first one, and it's not my first Beta Birdwood, but it's Elle's first Beta Birdwood.
Is it?
Yes.
How many Beta Birdwoods have you been in?
Probably about 6, I think, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. So what makes you pick a particular model of car, Carmela?
I think everyone's got their own interest in what they like. Yeah. So I've always been a bit of a pickup truck ute girl. So from modern right now to classics, but also I think just everyone's got their own favourite, whether they're a Ford, a Chevrolet, everyone's just got their favourite, yeah.
And you grew up with cars, didn't you?
Yeah, sort of, yeah. I sort of got into it later in life, but my husband grew up with cars, and that's how we met, and we've just continued. Yes.
So what car did you meet over?
Over a ute.
Over a ute, I love it. You're a pickup girl, he was a ute guy. A marriage made in motoring heaven.
Yes.
Oh, good for you. And so you're fully expecting to get back up to all the way?
We live up there. So,
right.
So we started up at Gumaraka and made our way down to West Beach this morning.
What time did you have to leave?
We left just before 6. So
fantastic. So what sort of shape was this vehicle in when you first got it?
As you see it, it is like what it is, but internally we had to do a full rebuild. So we've only had it 12 months, and DreamWorks Garage did the whole internal rebuild for us.
Oh, it's
so we could get it on the road.
Divine.
So, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. And so what will you be doing this afternoon after...
We've actually planned a lunch back at our house. It's unfortunate that we can't do the after event this year because of COVID. So we planned an afternoon lunch back at our place up in the hills. So,
for Chevrolet club members?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, wow. And do you get right into it? Do you research everything about the car?
Because like I said, we've got lots of different cars. We've got a 69 Camaro as well. So we try and keep them as stock as we can. So
what's it been like in your relationship with the motoring industry and over the years with the level of involvement of women? Is it something that's growing?
Yeah, definitely. Seeing a lot more women driving and owning and doing up their own cars, mechanics as well, and I think a lot stems from probably bringing up in the family too. So a lot more now, and I think a lot more accepted than what it was. So,
and obviously the guys don't mind.
No, the guys don't mind.
What do you love most about it? Like, what gets you into a car? Is it the history? Is it the fashion that was involved with it?
Just the overall, history, the culture. It's very much a culture.
It's just from the people coming by today, it just looks like everyone's just having an absolute ball. So I can see why you get hooked. Thank you so much for stopping by, and good luck for the rest of the drive.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla.
That is an excellent start to our visits to the Gully Hotel today. We're back at the hub in Birdwood, watching the cars as you are, watching vehicles of all kinds, in fact, going past. Still looks like we're on the highway at the moment, but of course, slowly but surely we'll wend our way through the hills through to the National Motor Museum at Birdwood, which is actually run by the History Trust of South Australia. And Greg Mackey is the big boss of that. He's the Chief Exec of the History Trust, and it's lovely to have him at the desk in the hub. Greg Mackey, good morning.
Good morning, Keith, and good morning, viewers.
Isn't this a bit exciting?
It's seriously exciting. It's, of course, not the first Beta Birdwood, but this is the first one we have telecast, and that is very exciting.
And in quite special conditions. You can probably now tell us how tight it was. How close was it not to happening?
We, of course, had been watching from week to week and day to day with the SA Health warnings with regard to COVID, and we did, in fact, actually contemplate pulling the plug. We had to pull the plug earlier this year on our South Australia's History Festival, the statewide celebration, because of COVID, and we paused, and all credit to Michael Neal, the chair of the Beta Birdwood Committee, because he reminded me and reminded others that this is not just a celebration for the audience, it's actually a really important event for collectors. And that they look forward to it for a year, and that we ought to do everything we can to make that possible.
Which brings us to what the event is really about. It depends a bit on who you ask, doesn't it? Because you just mentioned the motor enthusiasts, and their history is very personal. But is it also a museum on wheels for the rest of us?
It is a great celebration, Keith, of the citizen collector, of the passion that individuals who collect vehicles, they might only have one special vehicle, but they have it, and they absolutely, it's a source of pride and joy and pleasure for them. And that collective, distributed collection amongst citizens is, in fact, the mainstay of our national heritage.
So you can do so much at the National Motor Museum, but they're a very important part of keeping our automotive history alive.
Absolutely. We hold in trust for the people of South Australia and the nation a collection of vehicles up here at Birdwood. We also present vehicles that have been loaned to us by collectors, and between those two, that's still only a microcosm of the potential for collecting of automobiles. And so it's the private citizen who is the mainstay of our national automotive heritage.
And there's been a lot of debate about, where should these things be and so on. We've got a real claim in South Australia to be a very important base for automotive history in the nation, haven't we?
We absolutely do, and I am so proud of our National Motor Museum that this is something where South Australia does kick above its weight, punch above its weight, and we have a lot of very dedicated, passionate people who work as colleagues here at the History Trust at the National Motor Museum, and it's our job to make the experience for visitors as enlightening and informative as possible.
Because you're not allowed to touch them, but you can get pretty close.
You can get pretty close.
and we're back to looking at some of the vehicles that come through. Got plenty of motorbikes up here.
Absolutely.
In fact, this is how it began, isn't it? Originally,
I believe so.
I think it started out with a private collector looking for a spot for his collection. Thank goodness he bought the mill when he did.
Absolutely.
And so it builds from there to the point now where there's so many personal stories up here. I think a good exhibition or a good museum evokes people's stories. I was reminded just preparing for this event of the closeness of it to the Conlon family. My dad worked at Richard's Motor Factory at Mile End, and he worked at Holden's at Woodville before it moved to Elizabeth's. So there are cars up here that he helped put together. And there'll be people who will tell those sort of stories, or where they went in that particular vehicle, or how important it was to them.
That's absolutely correct. And you don't have to scratch too far back into most South Australians' families' history to find somebody who worked at Holden, or who worked at Chrysler, or Mitsubishi. These are fundamental, foundational industries in South Australia.
We're being reminded of that this is another first here. The 40th anniversary Beta Birdwood has actually got vehicles from not so long ago. You don't have to go back to before the Second War to see, or much more than that today, because we're seeing some Valiants that are made down at Mitsubishi.
That's correct.
And so on. We're getting that sense again of the motor industry.
Into the 80s. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So here we are, back in the Motor Museum, where really this is where the story began, I suppose, and it was one of the factors that got the whole Beta Birdwood off the ground. There was somewhere to go. There was a finish.
That's right. Of course, originally the Beta Birdwood started at Glenelg, and it grew so much that we moved to Barrett Reserve at West Beach for the starting point. And
in fact, I read in the history that at one stage, given that this was partly inspired by the London to Brighton run, maybe we could start in Brighton, but they couldn't find enough room. Couldn't get enough room for the cars.
There'd be a traffic jam of all proportions.
Yeah. Well, it's terrific to have you with us. I know you're going to be around just sensing it as people start to arrive and so on. So it's lovely to have him with us. Greg Mackey is the director of the History Trust of South Australia, an organisation that I love with a passion, close to lust, they reckon. But it's really one of the important jobs that you do. Thanks very much, Greg.
Thank you, Keith.
Now,
great pleasure.
I should have mentioned, by the way, we'll talk more about this, but a very important partner to today is our charity partner, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and we'll celebrate their involvement. We hope you'll be donating to it as we move along today in this live stream event. Now, normally, in fact, I reckon you haven't been a governor in South Australia if you haven't had something to do with the Beta Birdwood, and indeed we'll come to that. Our current governor has something to do with it, and on Monday, would you believe? But the other one who's always involved is the Premier, unless he or she happens to be overseas somewhere. Our Premier can't be with us here today, but of course Stephen Marshall has put down something for us. So let's get a special message from the Premier.
Welcome to the 2020 Beta Birdwood, which is celebrating 40 years of motoring heritage. This iconic event sees thousands of South Australians and interstate visitors exploring the Adelaide Hills and surrounding regions. While this year we won't be welcoming as many interstate visitors, it's great to see that organisers have found a way to share the experience through live coverage of the event. This means anyone with internet can tune in from anywhere in the world and enjoy the passing parade of motoring history. Importantly, this year's more than 1,000 entrants will provide a real economic boost to the bushfire affected areas throughout the Adelaide Hills. The government is pleased to continue its long-term support for this event, and I look forward to seeing it grow for another 40 years.
As Minister for Education, I'm so proud to be responsible for the History Trust of South Australia and the National Motor Museum, which do such a fantastic job every year in running the Beta Birdwood. This year, we are able to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the first Beta Birdwood, and I'm so pleased that it is able to go ahead, especially given the challenging the year that we've all had, to see the event, to see so many people participating, and to see the Beta Birdwood in such good nick is really wonderful. Thank you to all the staff, all the volunteers, everybody who's involved, and most importantly, all of the citizen collectors who have been looking after their cars so well, and to see them, put them on display and participate in this event. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
The South Australian Tourism Commission is really proud to be supporting the return of the Beta Birdwood. 40 years celebrating today, well done. Look, this event, over 1,000 cars entering it. They'll be stopping at local businesses, cafes, as they make their way through. You know, please, I hope you're enjoying the live streaming today. Well done to the organisers, and the South Australian Tourism Commission is really proud to be a supporter of this event.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's.
We've also got Shannon's Home and Contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years. But we still need your help. Donate today.
Good, really good as they come up Anzac Highway. I'm sure they are making Michelle Toft feel very, very happy again, because Michelle's back in her old workplace. She was part of the National Trust, the History Trust, I should say, and the National Motor Museum. Michelle, welcome back.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm so excited. This is one of my favourite days of the year.
What have you been seeing?
Seeing all the vehicles going along the route and seeing a few spectators on the side there, it's fantastic. People waving and people, the smiles on their faces they're driving along or riding along is fantastic.
So. Now, history is your bent.
Yes.
And so during your time here, that's what you did mostly?
Yep, so I was one of the curators here for a while, and I'm very passionate about social history. I will admit here that I'm not a motoring buff. I don't know much about horsepower or engines and things like that, but I'm into the stories around the vehicles.
What sort of projects did you pick up on? What did you discover?
So one of my favourite projects I did while I was here was the story of Alice Anderson. So she was one of the first female mechanics starting up a motor mechanic garage in 1919 in Victoria. So I did an exhibition around her, and I felt very passionate around women and motoring, and that's the thing about today with the Beta Birdwood. I love seeing women driving the vehicles and being a part of the event.
That story, by the way, the exhibition's gone, but fortunately it's been kept in an online form.
Yes.
So you can have a look at it on the National Motor Museum website right now.
Definitely check out the National Motor Museum website to find out a bit more about Alice Anderson's story. I was very connected with her because she's a similar age to me and one of the sort of motoring pioneers for women in Australia, so check that out.
What era, when did she start her sort of mechanics business in Melbourne?
So this is around World War I. So you can sort of look at how this was an opportunity. That time was a time for women to sort of step forward. A lot of the men were off at war, and so women had the opportunity where they had to sort of take over the roles that were typically for male only, essentially.
We just get back to the vehicles, which is what we're here for today, of course, as they come up from the bay to Birdwood. As usual, 40th anniversary of the event, this time combining both the vintage cars, and right up through to the classics.
It's fantastic people on the side of the road, because I know for many people they go every single year, grandchildren, grandparents and everything, to watch the vehicles go past and share their own memories about the vehicles they used to drive and things like that. So it's a really family event. We've got a panel van there, which is awesome, pulling in there.
And the mix-up this year is amazing, isn't it? We'll have something from the 30s, followed by something from the 60s or the 70s. Someone was asking me before the event, like, do they stay in order? The answer is no.
The answer is no, and you do find if there's an older vehicle that is in front, they'll move to the side to let some of the classics go past them. And often the motorcycles, they sort of go past as well. So, but it's sort of like understood that the older vehicles should just move a little bit aside so the classics can go through.
So now back to what you were doing here, as I was speaking with Greg Mackey about this, that the people stories, you must have had stories coming at you just as fast as you were trying to deliver them back to us.
Yeah, so one of my roles when I was here was helping out with the Bay to Birdwood marketing. And so part of that was to meet with some of the vehicle owners that were going to be entering in the event. And I did video interviews with them, and that was amazing. It was fantastic to meet with families and hear the story of their vehicle. There were people that found a vehicle in a barn or in a paddock, and then they did it up all by themselves, or there was a vehicle that had been passed down from generation to generation, and they all got to have the experience of learning to drive in it. And it's just fantastic meeting the entrants behind the vehicles and hearing their passion and their stories. There's a lovely story that's attached to the Royal Flying Doctor Service, our charity partner for the whole of this 40th anniversary run. And I think, I'm not sure who found it, but someone's found an old black buckboard, very similar, if not the same model, as was used by John Flynn, the founder of the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Wow. As he drove around, he drove around out of Beltana, so the roads weren't exactly flash. He was heading out into the outback, and I think that was part of his idea, part of what gave birth to the idea that it's so hard and so far to get to the next place that there was a need for a mantle of safety. Yeah. And thus this concept of a pretty new idea, an aeroplane, and then a pedal wireless by Alf Traeger discovering. Do you know anything about that sort of creation? I'm throwing really on the spot. I think when I was thinking about that, it's funny how with people with vehicles sort of back when there was not very good roads and things like that, they had to come up with really creative solutions. If they got stuck somewhere, if they got bogged, and we hear a lot of stories about that, about people coming up with, something just to make sure they can continue going on the road. And that does show that even though today we have better roads, there still is that distance, and that is where the Royal Flying Doctor Service is really important. Yeah. So if you go to the website, the National Motor Museum website, there's a spot there where you can donate, and we hope, of course, people will do that. And, by way of saying thanks to all the people who make this happen, particularly the people in their vehicles, which is where you come in. Yeah. So I think it's fantastic that this year $5 of each entry fee for being a vehicle entrant is going towards the Royal Flying Doctor Service. It's a really good cause, and I'm excited that that's happening this year. So. Yeah. Now, what do you do now? You left the automotive thing. Are you still doing history? I'm still doing history. So I'm the historical and cultural officer at the City of Burnside. Still focusing on social history there and keeping those stories alive, which that's what I'm really passionate about, keeping history alive and making sure that people understand why it's relevant today. Thanks very much, Michelle. Thank you. And that's very important, and I'm sure some vehicles will enter into the history of Burnside as well.
the hub, as we're now calling it, at the National Motor Museum, the director of the National Motor Museum, Paul Rees, joins me. Hey, Paul.
Hey, Keith.
It must be fun for you because we were so close to not doing this, but here they come.
I know, it's amazing. I'm just so impressed with the effort that everyone's putting into this, and we are bringing the Bay to Birdwood, but in a different way.
Yeah, it is. It's certainly quite different. Economically, how has the Bay to Birdwood evolved? How does it work?
Well, how it works is it's all the entrants. It's the participants, all those people in those vehicles that you see have subscribed to the event. They're dying to get into it. At the beginning of the year, we had 1,650 entrants. Now, COVID hit, and so we're proud to have about 1,230 out there today, and I think that's a good shake. We lost about 250 interstaters.
So a lot of Melbourneites would love to be here.
I think so, yeah. But we saw a few of them giving us some lovely messages saying wish we were there, and we wish they were here too. And we do. I do have a lot of sympathy for what's going on with Victoria there. Yeah. It's been hit
It's a
home
little
quite
bit of good news starting to happen.
And while we're enjoying ourselves today, we're realising that some aren't. But hey, it's great to be doing something, isn't it, Keith?
It is, and streaming means that we're hoping that some of the Singapore entrants might even be looking.
I hope so. They were going to come this year, and unfortunately that got shelved. But yes, they'll be back. So yes, economically, it's supported by the participants. It's a historic vehicle movement show in a way, and it shows how impressive it is that all these vehicles are owned by these citizen collectors. And I've always, as the Motor Museum director, I've always considered the Bay to Birdwood a one-day loan. A one-day loan from the community, and we open our grounds, and they all come up, and they're very impressive. So it's a museum inside out for the day.
It is indeed. Yeah, that's a nice way of looking at it. And of course, today they won't be hanging around for long, as we see a couple of the cars starting to come through. Motorbikes as well. In fact, all sorts of vehicles.
Absolutely, yeah. Also,
haven't seen a fire truck yet.
Last year we had a whole load of army vehicles as well. One thing, Keith, is that when economically we wouldn't be able to do this without our sponsors, and that's Shannon's is our major sponsor, the South Australian Tourism Commission, the advertiser this year have come in, and they've got a massive, a brilliant team who've been behind us and helping getting the messages out, as well as the messages plus mixed in with the stories, and that's a really clever way of doing things. They found a clever way of doing it, but also at the same time saying we're doing this thing. Antique tyres, auto transformers, Eastside Automotive. There's a whole list of them who get behind us in many ways to help the event get ahead.
To help a vehicle like this one come through.
Absolutely. Look at that.
Yeah.
That's
now the sponsors are really important to you, and so is our charity partner this year, as I've mentioned.
Yeah, the Royal Flying Doctor Service, and I think I've been watching a few of those ads. They're tearjerkers, aren't they?
Yeah.
They certainly get you. Well, they don't want to get the heart racing, but
we don't want the Flying Doctor.
My mum was born in Australia, but I grew up in Wales, and I grew up with stories of the Royal Flying Doctor Service. So this charity partnership this year really hits home for me, because it sort of brings a bit of a boyhood dream of I used to imagine the Royal Flying Doctor Service and the services they did when I was thinking about what it would be like to be in Australia. So Royal Flying Doctor Service, love them.
You're not just in Australia, you're at Birdwood, you're about to go out and with a big smile on your face start welcoming vehicles. Paul Rees,
fantastic.
It's great working with you, and good luck for the rest of the day.
Good on you, Keith.
We're going to go and visit now two of the people who are in the vehicles at the moment. Toby Coates is well known as a kidney surgeon. He's a kidney transplant specialist at the Royal Adelaide Hospital. Lovely fella. He has a car that is known in the family as Voldemort. It's the car that shall not be named. We'll also catch up with Carmela and her El Camino.
I'm Toby Coates, and I've driven up my 1927 Standard. It came out from the United Kingdom in the 20s as a chassis, and then the body of the car was built by Duncan and Fraser, who are up on Flinders Street. So it's actually a sort of South Australian car. It was built that way. When I acquired it, which was about 10 years ago, it was pretty much non-running and non-functional. So it was quite a labour of restoration and love. And the restoration was done by Graham Good up there in Clare, so it's a Graham Good's car. My wife, when she can bring herself to speak the name, refers to this car as Voldemort because it is the car that cannot be named in front of her. She has said to me in the past that I could take up whittling or something like that would be, something she would approve of, but the car is a non-approved of hobby. My good friends and I, when we're travelling, we'll often pick up car parts for each other on the other side of the world and bring them back. We really have boxes of stuff arrive at the hotel, and usually I don't tell her about it because I think it's better to ask for forgiveness than to ask permission, and the boxes will arrive and then we have to pack them up, so that diminishes our luggage allowance. So again, it's sort of obsession with bringing back bits of, international harvesters from overseas. She probably doesn't like that aspect of it. But it's called Voldemort because we can't talk about it in front of her. So, yeah. So Voldemort, having been restored, did it up for my daughter's wedding. That was the wedding car, or her wedding car, which was fantastic. But just shortly before her wedding was his first run in the Beta Birdwood. And unfortunately, as many old car owners would sympathise, it was a good day for dial-a-toe because we got just up to Gumaraka and nearly within sight of the finishing yard, and unfortunately the tail shaft went. So that was the end of the Beta Birdwood on his first run. So he got within, because he was on the back of the dial-a-toe truck. He was literally in the car park and I could see the line, and I nearly said to the guy, "Can you just drive this bloody thing over the line so I can get my badge?" Sadly, Voldemort has not made it to the finish line of the Beta Birdwood yet, but we hope this is his year. It's a testament to man's ingenuity and skill, and then the passion of people to keep beautiful things going.
I'm Camilla. I'm a local from up here in the Adelaide Hills, and today I brought my newly acquired 1960 Chevrolet El Camino. I grew up with the Beta Birdwood. Being a local girl, my father took me to the Beta Birdwood, so we always used to drive down to Gumaraka and watch it year after year. And I think it was just one of those things as a kid, you go, one day I want to have a car and drive in that. At one stage we had two 69 Camaros and my husband was driving in front of me. I saw him brake and I just went, oh my God, bang. And I had a kangaroo hit the side of my 69 Camaro. And that was on our way to the starting point to Beta Birdwood. So when I got down there, I got the touch-up paint and just wrote Skippy on the side of the Camaro because it was like, everyone's gonna ask what happened. It was probably the best memory, but the worst one. I think nowadays there is more females in looking at cars, whether it's because of their fathers or brothers or whatever. It's probably more accepted than when I first started out. It was a little bit, you had to sort of define that you were a female car owner, and it might have been just in the way cosmetics of the car. I mean, even in my El Camino, I've sort of put that pink number plate just to say, hey, this is actually a female-owned car. We're members of the Chevrolet Performance Association of SA, and my husband and I also head up the South Australian Camaro Comrades of SA. It is very much a culture, and we've done things over in America as well, and travelled Route 66. So it's that whole history of motoring industry, not just here in Australia, but overseas as well, where these cars have come from. Beta Birdwood in itself is one of those events that does really reflect on the history of the car. I think the whole combination of not just the vehicle, but the fashion as well. It's just a great family day out, friends, picnic fashion. It's got everything. It's just got everything.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's.
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's. Insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years. But we still need your help. Donate today.
The Bay to Birdwood 2020 is the 40th anniversary event. Paul Rees is with me. He's the director of the National Motor Museum, where of course it's always completed. Now we're going back to one of the vehicles. Heather Kroll's the director of the Adelaide Fringe, and she's out there somewhere.
Hello.
Hello, Heather.
Hello.
We're hearing you. We're not seeing you yet. So yes, there you are. Where are you?
Can you see us?
Yeah, we got you.
Oh, great. We're coming live to you from Volvo, 1974, beautiful 164 TE. You can only see us here, so we've got the kids in the back here. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's like being in the wacky races around here. We've got, we're eating ice bobos in the Volvo. And yeah. Well, people are on the side of the street, not as many as usual, because I think because of the COVID rules, but it's great seeing everyone waving at us.
Yep. Now, what have you seen along the way? You mentioned there are a few on the side of the road.
There's a minor 1,000 gone past 1,100. Yep. What have we got? There's beautiful things. There's a DeVille coming up here. We've seen anthill mob cars. We've seen, Toad Hall just went by.
Heather, you managed to fit the Fringe in. I mean, it was suddenly the world changed within about 24 hours of the last event, didn't it?
Very lucky we got in. The rules of 500 as a limit were introduced on the Monday and we finished on the Sunday. So look, we were very lucky we scraped in, and it's so great to see that the Bay to Birdwood was able to happen. Even there was a bit of, I'm sure there was a moment there when they weren't sure, and it's just great that they could finally, to do it and to work out how to do it in the rules.
Thanks very much,
Heather. We're getting ready to do Fringe 21 as well, and working really closely with SA Health and the government, and look, everyone's beeping and waving. Hello. Yeah. So it's great. Look, it's wonderful that we're able to run events, and this one is going super well. Everyone's just having such a great day.
Well, best wishes in getting up here. We look forward to seeing you a bit later on. In the meantime,
if we make it.
You're going to make it. You'll be right.
Apparently Volvo is Latin for I roll, so hopefully we'll roll on in.
Thanks very much, Heather. We're going to now head down to the Gully Hotel at Tea Tree Gully, of course. Lainey Anderson has somebody with us. Lainey, we're waiting for you. Here she is, Lainey Anderson.
Hi, thanks Keith, and welcome back to the Gully Hotel and these amazing cars all coming through, making me wish that I'd kept my Datsun 240K, I tell you what, from the 1980s. Now, right now we're going to meet a man who absolutely loves his car. This is Dr. Toby Cope, and this is a 1927 Standard. Hi, Toby, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Tell us about this beautiful vehicle.
Well, this is a 1927 Standard that came out from the UK as a chassis in 26, 27, and then had an Adelaide body put on it, built on Flinders Street, Duncan and Fraser.
Built in Flinders Street?
Street and City, yeah, and it's lived all its life here in South Australia, and recently been sort of resuscitated by me.
I presume a car like this sort of owns you as much as you own it. How did it come into your possession?
Well, it sort of came in through the family. Got a direct connection through some of my in-laws, and he had it. My sister's husband's father had it, and then I had an opportunity to pick it up because I thought, you've got to do these things when you're young enough to be able to do them.
Yeah.
Start in the 60s. So it's much better starting.
Was it in good nick?
No, No, it was dreadful actually. So
Okay.
It was a bucket of rusted parts that sort of ran, but really needed a complete bare metal restoration all the way up. And that was done in Clare, which was interesting because the car originally went from Adelaide up to Clare and lived on a farm for a while, and then was resuscitated by Graham Good, and his classic car restoration is up there in Clare, and that's where it was all done.
I've heard about them. They're obviously amazing. Look at this job. It just must be such a joy to drive this car.
Graham is a real craftsman, and nothing he loves more than these wooden-bodied cars. This is a complete wooden body obviously with a metal shell around the frame.
Now, I believe you've had to travel parts of the world to find bits of this car. What's the craziest place you found a piece in?
The craziest place that we got a bit of it on is the rear differential. So this car runs a worm drive, or a worm. Is what's in the rear diff, and the original one on this was completely ruined and wasn't actually functional. So we were potentially looking at having to have some gears actually made, to cut the gears to create our own world supply of 1927 standard worm drives. Wow. But that was going to be quite expensive. But then a very good friend of mine, who's an orthopaedic surgeon in Wales, he went to the Beaulieu Auto Jungle and was talked to a bloke, and said, "Oh, I think there's one of your cars in a pond in Somerset. You could ring so-and-so and go down there." And so that's exactly what he did. He went down there, he drove himself down to Somerset, found this car that had been in a pond for the last 20 years, which was in fact an Australian standard. For some reason it migrated back to the United Kingdom. I don't know how that happened, but anyway. And we pulled the rear diff out, and we bought it for £100, and then it came out in Stuart's hand luggage. Somehow Singapore Airlines allowed him to bring this thing back. It must have looked like part of a bomb or something like that. We got it back and opened it up, and the worm drive that had been underwater for like 20 years, encased in their very deep engine oil that they used for this, it was perfect. So it's been slotted in the back here. So it was
how fantastic.
$5,000 to grind the worm, or £100. So it was £100 well spent.
Toby, that's so brilliant.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Hey, now listen, last time your standard made it into the Beta Birdwood. You didn't quite get to the finish line. Are you going to get there today?
Look, I'm still 85%, maybe 87% confident now. But
87, that's nice.
It's gone up a little bit because the temperature's actually pretty good. We're only just above the bottom circle there, so we haven't boiled yet, whereas the last time we boiled 4 times before we got to this point, so we're actually doing all right.
That was Toby looking at the temperature gauge, which is right at the front of the vehicle.
You can actually see it. You can see the mercury. Come around this side. See the red line?
That's beautiful.
Isn't it? Yeah. Simple stuff, but it works.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Toby.
Thank you, lady.
And good luck getting to the end. I hope you make it. And now it's time to meet some of the other fabulous citizen collectors of the Beta Birdwood.
My name's Carolyn Sigurdick, and we own a 1976 bay window combi camper, and we gave her name from the gentleman we bought her from. His name was Ray, and he didn't really want to get rid of her, but he had to because of failing health. We actually said to him just before we picked it up, and we said, "Oh, did you ever give her a name?" Because it's obviously a she. And he said, "No, I never did give her a name." And my husband and I looked at each other and we both said at exactly the same time, "It's Raylene." Combis have been in our family for as long as I can remember. My dad has always had one. It's just been one of those things that we've grown up with, as a family when we were kids growing up. Our first Beta Birdwood was 2 years ago, which was so much fun. Along with my dad, he's had his combi right from as long as I can remember. And I remember, as far as the Beta Birdwoods go, that we would often sit in front of the TV and watch it. And it wasn't actually until that we bought our own then we thought, we could actually go in this. This would be fun. And so we did that, and then we've got friends who have got other cars that have gone in as well. So we sort of make it a group thing. It allows you to, for a brief moment, live in those times where, we wouldn't remember them, but when they've talking about, you know, your grandparents had one of those cars, and I remember we went to this place in one of those and it broke down, or, you know, it's all those funny stories and brings all those memories back, and you get talking to everybody, and I just think it's that sense of community, and everyone has so much fun. The people who are standing on the side of the road watching you drive by, and they see the combis, and, you know, they do this and they ask you to beep your horn, and so, you know, it's great.
Jack Milster from Birdwood, live out on a farm. I've got a 1924 Indian motorbike. They call it a small chief. It's 1000cc, but a good old bike. I always wondered whether the whole thing would last the thing, but my grandson and my son says that as soon as I get out on the road, it's like the world's fastest Indian. They can't catch me. Very worthwhile to be in it. Wondering whether I would make it with my old bike, but because it hadn't been ridden for such a long time. But a different one said, don't shine her up too much, leave her like she's just come out the chook house. So I've done that. It's well, I certainly love the Beta Birdwood run locally here, and to go down and just see all the old bikes and chat to people, and I'm well known in the district, and I enjoy the kids, the little kids, and, you know, they the joy on parents, and you see grandparents there with their grandkids, and I'm sure they're saying, I used to have one of them, you know, oh, here comes an old Indian, and look, that's a great thing. Riding in the Beta Bird was a marvellous thing, and the route is great. Just meeting up with old blokes, there's quite a number of old Indian motorbikes here in Birdwood. It's an event that people love, those old machines, the old things going up the road. It's a great event.
My name's Jenny Marshall, and I drove a 1957 Armstrong Siddeley Sapphire limousine. My parents came to Australia in 1964, and they bought a smaller Armstrong Siddeley, a sedan or a saloon, similar in style. And then a few years later, child number 5, that's me, came along, and they needed an extra bit of room in the car. So fortunately they were in the Armstrong Siddeley Car Club at that stage, and a limousine became available, and my parents bought that, so there was room for all 5 of us kids in the back, close the glass and keep the kids quiet, and the mum and dad could ride up front where it was the nicest view and no noise from the rat bags in the back. About 24 years ago I bought it from Dad because he was getting a bit too old to drive it, and I've been slowly but steadily fixing it up ever since. The car's been in the family for about 50 years now. On a day when you're driving your car along the street and you see another older vehicle, there's always a bit of a wave of recognition between us, which is lovely. But then when there's, you know, over 1,000 of us on the road, it's fantastic. And then you get all the people standing by the road and kids holding up signs saying toot, so you do, and waving your way all the way to Birdwood. It's just the biggest hoot. I love it. There are some fantastic females certainly in our club. The chairman of our local branch here in South Australia, Barbara Pennington, has been in the club since before I was in the club, and there's a lot of support in the club for the girls, which is great. But the women are a very strong component of the club. The occasion of it is just so wonderful. It's such a great get together of the cars. We are so fortunate to have that here in South Australia. I think it's the largest event of its type in the Southern Hemisphere, literally on my back door. It's brilliant for me. And you know, people come from all over the country, and visitors who are visiting Australia come and see it from around the world. And it's here in our city. How lucky are we?
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's.
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's. Insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years. But we still need your help. Donate today.
You're watching this first, this inaugural live streaming event of the Bay to Birdwood on its 40th anniversary run. A very different event this year, and you'll feel that and see that as we come. Mind you, some things are timeless, and that's the vehicles on the road, and we'll be watching them as they come up here to Birdwood and the National Motor Museum. By the way, today we're hoping that you'll get in touch with us. If you'd like to text or go onto Facebook to the Bay to Birdwood page, then just hashtag Bay to Birdwood 2020. We'd love to bring your messages and questions wherever you are in the world. Joining me now is someone who's very familiar with this event. Martin Hazy is a former chair of the Bay to Birdwood. He's been a lot of other things too, an entrepreneur, Lord Mayor of Adelaide, now is Director of Business South Australia, but he's still in the event. Martin, welcome. You got here.
I got here, and what a wonderful drive it was. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I look forward to this event every year, Keith, and what a thrill for the 40th anniversary of the Bay to Birdwood today.
It's marvellous that we could get it to happen, even in a different way. How did the start feel? Quite different.
It was quite different, but it's terrific. My wife was watching the live stream on the phone as we were driving up, and it's a new experience. It's a different Bay to Birdwood, and it's a different year. So I think this is a wonderful example of an organisation adapting to different circumstances, and in so many ways it's opened up the Bay to Birdwood to the whole wide world.
As I mentioned though, some things are timeless, like this lovely vehicle coming towards us.
It's always good to see commercial vehicles, Keith, in the Bay to Birdwood. You get
trucks.
You get the trucks, you get the fire trucks. I know that Brenton Raglas, I think his father owns a fire truck, and that's often in the Bay to Birdwood. I'm sure it is this year, so it's wonderful to see commercial vehicles as well as motorbikes and passenger vehicles.
And this year's the first time, in special circumstances, that the two Bay to Birdwood, so to speak, have combined. So your car has been amongst some very early vehicles today.
That's right. Well, my car is 1967. It's a young'un amongst today's company, I must say.
Although more than 50 years old now. How did that happen?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's more than 50 years old. That is very true. But to have the mix, I mean, here's this looks like 1920s.
Yep.
What just came past us then, and what a great variety of vehicles on the road today.
Now, tell us about your car. Today you drove the Jensen?
No, I drove a Jaguar today.
Oh, you've swapped on us. Okay.
I have. Yes, I have.
You're one of those lucky fellows who has a choice.
Yes, I do.
Tell us about the range.
I drove a 1967 Jaguar 420G today, Keith. That's kind of the latest kind of version, or the last version of the Jaguar Mark 10. And I've had that car for some years, and I bought it from Jeremy Cordeaux, who, as we know, has a few and absolutely loves his classic cars. But it's a beautiful car. It's in very good condition.
Geez, I reckon one just went past there. It might have been about the year of my dad's first car. He learned to drive down around the Marion, the almond orchards, when Marion was still full of almond orchards.
Yes,
and I reckon it was a 1938 Morris. It's one of the things that this whole thing does, doesn't it? It brings back what happened with you and vehicles.
Oh, well, I think that's the wonderful thing about the Bay to Birdwood. It's about the stories, it's about the memories, it's about the family kind of history as much as it's about the vehicles. So everyone says, oh yes, my granddad had one of these and my father had one of these. But what's wonderful about the Bay to Birdwood, I also think, Keith, is it's educating the next generation. And we're seeing so many more examples of this, where we're seeing, the grandchildren who are taking an interest in classic cars and historic and vintage and veteran.
Did you pick that up at the start today?
I did, yeah. I think we're seeing more of that every year, which is really exciting, because in so many ways that's what this is all about. It's kind of, we're just custodians of these vehicles, and to be able to pass them on, I think, is a wonderful thing.
One of our former guests used that lovely phrase, citizen collectors.
I heard it on the live stream. Right. I thought that was a lovely turn of phrase, I must say.
Now, as a former chair, you can perhaps have a look to the future for us as well. Do we see this event becoming even more the Australian historic automotive event?
Oh, yes, without doubt. Without doubt. The Bay to Birdwood has such a wonderful reputation and such growing reach. So it's clearly, of course, much loved by South Australians, well known by Australians, but I think also increasingly that overseas. I think the Beta Birdwood is really extending its reach overseas too. Last year for the Beta Birdwood in 2019, I brought in a group of about 16 Singaporeans, and they came here just for this event. And they loved it. They absolutely loved it.
Yeah, now in a sense, when you say they came here just for this event, one of the original ideas, apart from it being very much for the historic car clubs, was that this should be a tourism event.
Yes.
So it's when Singaporeans come, they presumably don't just pack up on Sunday after they've had their picnic here and go home. We're hoping they stay for a week or two.
No, they were cycling through the Adelaide Hills. They were staying in some wonderful hotels in Adelaide. They were off to the Barossa Valley and the wineries. They of course spent time here at the National Motor Museum. I organised all the logistics. I was exhausted after all of that, I can say.
Now, one of the things that we are adding this year is partly out of necessity, but it's the mother of invention after all. Rather than these lovely vehicles that we're looking at coming and then staying and mingling for hours, we're going to send them off into the Adelaide Hills. What a great idea.
Well, isn't that wonderful? I mean, that's important at the best of times, but it's especially important in 2020. Off the back of only 9 months ago with the bushfires and so forth. I mean, the small businesses through the Adelaide Hills need all of our support, and it's so good to see South Australians giving it. So it's wonderful. It's a good idea.
I love the idea of seeing something like in any one of these vehicles here, whether it's from the 70s or the one coming towards us now, 20s probably.
I'd say 1920s,
yeah,
yes.
To see that, say, in a... Of course, I'm a heritage freak, so wouldn't it be lovely seeing it in the Mount Torrens heritage area? The whole town is a heritage area. I drove through it today. Just old hotels, old mills, just that sense of our history.
Yes.
And now we can plonk some automotive history in the middle of it all afternoon.
Heritage tourism, what a wonderful vehicle that is. Heritage tourism is such a terrific opportunity for South Australia, and it's growing.
I'm waiting. I haven't spotted one. There've probably been 2 or 3 go past at least, but part of my love of South Australia's history and natural landscapes, our national parks and so on, was born in a Morris 840.
Oh, really?
We used to go camping, the family would go camping with the brack on the top for the tent and so on. So places like Port Lincoln and Mount Gambier and Robe, let alone the closer in places that we can reach within a day. The Murray River, that sort of passion for South Australia had a lot to do with the Morris 840, I can tell you.
Well, Keith, it was only a few short years ago that the Morris Register nationally had their annual rally in Adelaide for the Beta Birdwood, and they were celebrating a milestone.
Here's a ripper going past
That
there.
is just fantastic.
You love an open tourer.
Oh, I mean, just the glamour of the 1920s open tourer cars. I mean, it was just, the roaring 20s really produced some roaring cars, didn't it?
And indeed, the connection with South Australia is sometimes maybe not quite so dramatic, or so obvious, but we were putting these vehicles together. So you might see a Studebaker go past, or a Dodge, or an Oldsmobile, but it may well have been put together in the city when Richards started out in the city and then went down to the old Le Cornu shop site.
That's right.
We were putting together vehicles here for the nation.
South Australia's automotive kind of production, manufacturing and assembling history is extraordinary. I mean, it all probably starts way back in 1857 with Holden and Frost on Grenfell Street.
Exactly.
And that was the origins. I mean, they were saddle makers and then sidecar makers and then, of course, body manufacturers and ultimately became Holdens. So it's a great history on so many counts for producing cars, building cars, bodying cars, assembling cars, and there was a myriad of manufacturers and assembly kind of production plants who were assembling cars that came into Australia, mostly from England, some from the US, of course.
Yeah, which is another part of our history, isn't it? Because there are thousands of workers who've been there. So there's grandpa was there and great-grandpa was there. And great-grandma sometimes, because those factories turned into munitions works and made munitions boxes and shells and so on during the Second World War.
They did. No, absolutely. That was... They tooled up very quickly for munitions manufacturing, and they had a skilled workforce to do it.
Yeah.
Happened a little bit in World War I. It happened a lot in World War II.
Yeah. So we're going to go back to Laney in a moment because at the gully, of course, a good spot just to enter the hills. Now, you've never driven one of the really early vehicles, have you? You've always been one of those Swisho 60s or 70s models.
Most of my vehicles are 1960s, but I have this kind of great admiration for, 1930s vehicles are beautiful.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just that in the 20s, and we do have a few. I think the earliest car today is 1908.
Is it really?
Yeah. So
how wonderful.
Now that's a little bit more of a will they make it thing.
Yes.
And there are, of course, endless tales that you must have heard as the chair of how they almost got here. We're backing Toby Coates to get in this year. He's with his car, which hasn't made it yet.
I was listening to Dr. Toby Coates in the live stream as I was coming in. What a great story that was. When I was chair of Beta Birdwood, which was for about 4 years, there was 1 year that I don't think I made it. And I think I turned up to the Beta Birdwood in a taxi, Keith.
We're just moving across from seeing the vehicle.
Welcome back to the gully, and we're about to meet a beautiful car and a lovely lady. The car is an Armstrong Sydney Sapphire, and the lovely lady is Jenny Marshall. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, fantastic. Been a great drive.
Has it?
Yeah.
How is it actually driving? Because this is the first year that the older cars have been with the younger vehicles. And how has that been?
Well, fortunately, I get to ride in it every year because I've always been right between the two classes. So I'm able to come in it every year. Car drive's fantastic. It doesn't like the slow bits, but it loves the fast stuff because this car goes just fine at any speed.
Jenny, you have had this car since you were a little girl in your family. Was it special? Did you know that it was always special?
Always special, yeah.
So
even in those days, it used to turn heads because Dad bought it when it was about 19 years old, and then I bought it for Dad about 24 years ago. But it's been in the family for 50 years.
Have you actually needed to do much work to the car?
Been repainted, been reupholstered, and had quite a lot of mechanical things done. It's a lot better car to drive now than it used to be, for sure.
Are you passionate about this particular vehicle? Like, do you know everything about it?
No, I'm still very much a work in progress, but the good thing is there are some fantastic people who can do work on it. And with the Armstrong Siddeley Car Club, we get a lot of support and plenty of parts and things like that. So whatever you need, there's somebody to help you with some expertise, some advice, and the parts and the clever mechanics available.
Are there many of the actual limousines remaining in Australia?
No, there's probably only about 8 or 10. This is the only one in South Australia, which is nice, but I think there's probably no more than 10.
Is this your first Beta Birdwood, or have there been others?
No, this is my 15th.
You're 15! Wow, okay, so we know she can make it to the end.
Old hand this
right.
year, yeah.
Now, I noticed when you were rolling in that you have a beautiful Sphinx or something on the front. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, the Sphinx, it was when the first cars first came out 100 years ago, last year was when the first Armstrong Siddeley was built. The cars were proclaimed by some person to have such a silent engine, an engine that was as silent as the Sphinx. And so the manufacturers thought that's a pretty good mascot to put on the front, so they did that. But my one's a bit different because it actually has the jet engines on the side, because that was the point at which Armstrong Siddeley was turning to making aeroplanes, and so it's a tribute to the jet engines.
And you have a little pooch on the back seat. And is that your mascot? Tell me about that.
My little friend Ernest.
Ernest?
Yes, he's just a little cunt. He has a very earnest look on his face. So
he certainly does.
He's very sweet. He does behave himself, never soils the upholstery.
And were you kids that good in the back of the car?
We were, if not, though, Dad could always close the glass, so couldn't hear us. So that was nice.
And Mum could open the window and throw things at you if you were getting too naughty?
Yes, definitely. Yes, a hand every so often or whatever. But yes, we were good kids. But there was room for 5 of us in the back because whilst you can't see it, there's actually a middle row of seats.
Where did you get to sit?
I was the youngest, so I was always in the middle seats.
Middle seats.
I graduated straight from the middle seats to the front seat, and I've never ridden in the back seat.
Jenny, thank you so much for stopping by today. It's been an absolute pleasure getting to know your beautiful Armstrong Siddeley car.
Nice to meet you.
Keith, back to you at Birdwood HQ.
Thanks very much, Laney. Wasn't it fantastic seeing the Armstrong Siddeley? That lovely story when we heard the interview earlier of being able to close the glass so the kids in the back, you can't hear them.
That's right.
But we're looking forward to seeing that vehicle up here at Birdwood. And as we watch more vehicles roll by, as they start to get into the hills there, that's the Gully Hotel vision. There's that's a nice one. That's more your sort of area. Coming up, what sort of maybe late 30s, 40s?
That looked like a Bristol, I think that may have been, which of course were, Bristol made aeroplanes. They made lots of aeroplanes in World War II, and their post-World War II vehicles were very kind of aeronautically inspired from a design perspective, from the switchgear, from everything. So they're a stunning car, Bristol.
There'll be a few people would be waving to that Volksy too.
They were.
There's a lot of people have owned a Volksy in their time.
And I just saw Heather Kroll's Volvo, which I think might be a Volvo 164, I'm not sure.
And
but
an early MG rolling
I saw
by,
that drive into the car
roadster.
park there, so I'm sure that she'll be chatting with Laney at some point in time.
Historic motorbikes coming up here, and a long time ago it was part of the origins of the museum up here because a private collector needed room and so bought the old mill.
Isn't that a great story?
Yeah.
Is it? And look what we've got today as a result of that. So, 40 years later, it's just a wonderful story indeed.
Martin Hazy is with us now at the desk up here at the National Motor Museum, and he's been chair of this run, so he knows a whole lot about the background of it, the logistics of it, Martin.
Well, there are many moving parts, no pun intended, to the Bay to Birdwood, but in so many ways, of course, it's usually 3 events in one. So there is the start event at Barrett Reserve at West Beach, and there's a lot of work around that, and there's a committee that looks after the start. Then there's the route, and there's all the logistics of the route planning, and then of course there's the celebration up at the National Motor Museum itself. And it's almost 3 parts in one. It always has been, and it's a wonderful part of the event. But I think the fact that an event like this can have 72 kilometres, showcasing this kind of rolling cavalcade of so many vehicles through so many eras, where people can just literally have a barbecue and have a seat on the side of the road and watch them roll by. I mean,
of course, this year, because we've had to work with totally new rules, nobody at the start, no people allowed in today. Just in case you haven't caught it, the National Motor Museum is closed. The vehicles will arrive here, and then, as we said just a few minutes ago, the great news is they're going to head off into the Adelaide Hills after that and do their own sort of touring. But normally this acts as a great advertisement, and so it should be, for this wonderful National Motor Museum.
It does. I mean, the National Motor Museum, Keith, is special. I mean, it's just, the collection up here is stunning and forever evolving. But today is a different day, and everyone I've spoken to, I think, has booked lunch somewhere in the Adelaide Hills. So isn't that wonderful?
By the way, that's something the Adelaide Hills tourism people are advocating now. So many people are coming back in that they're really advising, book early.
A Morris Minor, that was very similar to my first car.
There you go.
When I was 17 years of age, I bought a 4-door Morris Minor of very similar vintage to the one that we can all see now.
It brings back memories for me too.
And I loved it.
I used to sing in a group called the Wesley Three, and we could fit a double bass, my snare drum, Martin's guitar, and the 3 of us in the Mini.
Really?
Now that's a little bit later, but the Morris Minor had similar amazing capacities.
Well, that could be an advertisement, couldn't it? Everyone bringing their gear out of the Mini.
Exactly.
They were famous for it. They're very space efficient.
The future of the event, where do you see it headed?
Oh, look, I think it's going to go from strength to strength. I think there's a deep authenticity about the Bay to Birdwood, and I think people crave that. I think there's a very strong sense of community connection with the Bay to Birdwood. I think people love that.
Yeah, one of the things that Paul Rees, the director up here, mentioned is that, in a way, he feels like we all, as a community, borrow these cars for the day from the passionate citizen collectors that they are.
It's a very, very wise comment from Paul, because I think that sums it up so well. It's a rolling collection of art in so many ways, isn't it? I mean,
well, that's a very important point, isn't it? The art side of it. It's one thing to have an old vehicle, but then there's a massive task involved in bringing it, particularly an early vehicle as we just see heading off at the moment. But there are a whole lot of craftspeople involved in that as well.
And I think this is where South Australia does so well, that there is this kind of very large, widespread group of people who are fixing these vehicles, re-trimming these vehicles, spraying these vehicles, re-chroming, doing, you know, a lot of the owners would do some of this work themselves.
What about one of the issues that arises when we start looking back? So you're talking about your collection, your 3 cars are in the 60s, 70s.
That's correct.
Now that means, is it the days of plastic moulding has already come in by then?
My Jaguar and my Jensen, not so much. I've got a slightly later Mercedes, which absolutely yes.
Now that's not quite so easy. You can't get somebody with a carpentry skills to redo your dashboard.
No, you can't. No, there's some very clever people out there who can kind of improve and fix a injection moulded or plastic moulded dash or whatever else, and you look at it, you'd never know the difference.
You're a futurist. Is 3D printing going to be the answer?
Well, it possibly could be. I mean, it's really interesting, this kind of...
Oh, just see the cries they go past.
I mean, aren't those fins extraordinary? I mean, that era of vehicle is just fabulous. It just...
You either loved or hated that vehicle. There's no in between.
I was sharing with Genevieve on the way up that it kind of, those 1950s American vehicles, they celebrate the confidence of America in the 1950s, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it was just kind of everything was happening in the US at that time, and vehicle design kind of reflects culture at that point in time also, and America was a very confident place in the 1950s, and their vehicles represented that.
As we see the vehicles go past, it's worth reflecting on that, isn't it? We're seeing social history, design history, economic history all rolled into a vehicle.
Engineering evolution, the whole lot. Oh, look at that combi. I mean, they really are very collectible these days.
There was a time when you thought you just went surfing in a combi.
Well, I think I did when I was 18. A friend of mine had one. It was great fun.
Martin Hazy, fantastic to have you with us. We've been talking about the Adelaide Hills and produce and all the wonderful things that are here. Let's have a look.
Northern Adelaide Hills is like half an hour from the Adelaide city. It's a very diverse region, so we're an agricultural area where South Australia's largest pear growing region. We grow a lot of grapes out this way, and you've got a lot of different businesses from distilleries, breweries, cideries, all through to wildlife parks.
And I think everyone sort of puts a big push, especially in this region, on local. Like, for us ourselves, everything we do is South Australian only. So live down in the northeastern suburbs, it's a 5-minute drive up into the hills and you start reaching destinations you can go to. So it's really, you know, we used to be seen as a pass through to the river or the Barossa, but now, you know, you can spend a day or even, you know, find a nice B&B up in the area and spend a weekend up here with lots to do.
You know, Gummaraka is that next stage towards the Northern Adelaide Hills. It is the agricultural heart of the Adelaide Hills. It is the 5-spoke hub between, you know, several sub-areas of the Adelaide Hills that you just simply would never be able to find. And the benefit of it, it is literally 40 minutes from the city.
The culture of our community is something that we also want to offer. Our culture is so friendly and we're so open and we just love sharing our space with everybody.
The common theme of Woodside is it's the gateway to the Adelaide Hills, largely obviously except Verdun and Harndorf. People will come to Woodside first to go to most of the other wineries and the other attractions, if you will, the cafes and the bakeries and the main street of Woodside, but also the Amy Gillett Bikeway. And I think the most popular thing about it is its proximity to the city.
Woodside is quite an interesting little town. There's just so many little pockets of interest.
We're lucky to be in what I think is one of the nicest little regions in Australia. It's in my mind the centre of some of the best produce, primary produce in Australia.
It's still close enough to the city to visit very easily, but it's far enough away to have kept its own identity, and so you really feel like you're in a little country town there as well.
Well, for us, the bushfires were extremely challenging times. It shut our business at the busiest time of the year for us.
2015, we had Samson Flat bushfires. I suppose we all learnt a lot in that time. When Cuddly Creek fires started this year, it was just before New Year's, and I think anyone that had plans at that point, nothing was really sure about what you could or couldn't do. Something of that magnitude just changes so quickly. So we noticed a big drop in bookings and so on, events cancelled because of the proximity of the fire.
Definitely had a ripple effect through the whole Adelaide Hills, and we noticed a huge downturn in change, which we were still catching up from when COVID hit.
We shut down, and when of course COVID hit, we had to lay off most of our hospitality staff. Anyone front of house, we couldn't support that either. But more importantly, our business is inherently linked to agriculture. We are heavily reliant on farmers and the quality of produce. So we had a triple whammy, if you were to understand it. Not just the droughts, there was the damage of the bushfire, but then the smoke that actually caused all forms of issues with grapes.
It was a prevention of access because the roads were closed. That's where we as a largely tourism business were impacted. That being said, post the fires, there was a lot of press, a lot of push to get people in the region, which did happen.
Out of all of this though, it's just amazing to see the township and the people all really support each other.
Look, the number of people that come to see us from down in town to help the hills was incredible.
After the fires, we became doubly aware of how important creative activity would be for our community as part of their recovery. And if it's a group activity, that can help to create social connections and support as well.
It was also trying to get people back up to the Adelaide Hills. For our businesses, we really had to work towards getting people back up here.
But it's the Beta Birdwood and events like that really bring a lot of people into town, get a lot of focus on the smaller rural towns in South Australia. The Beta Birdwood is probably the premier event that you can actually experience this in the Adelaide Hills.
Whereas it's fantastic this year that the big push is getting out there into the region to see it.
Beta Birdwood is going to bring massive numbers of people to Adelaide Hills as a region and through the area, so it's a huge event for us.
We really appreciate people coming up and seeing us, and the bonus is that you can do cheese and chocolate in the one place.
I don't need to sell it anymore, do I?
The draw of the Beta Birdwood is just absolutely mind-blowing. Like, it just so many diverse people from so many diverse regions coming together, I suppose, collectively to highlight the history of cars throughout Australia. I suppose for a business in the region, it brings a lot of people that may not come for specifically what you offer, but what you offer can add value to their experience while they're in the Adelaide Hills.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's,
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years, but we still need your help. Donate today.
Flying Doctor Service is our special charity partner today, and we do hope you'll donate. This is a live streaming event, so it's a first after 40 years of the Beta Birdwood. Out of not doing it 3 months ago, now we're live streaming to the world as well. We're going to talk to someone now who's very well known to South Australians. She's a legend in the local media. You've got to be old to be a legend, but I always say that.
I think I'm in the veteran category.
She's a junior legend. Jane Riley is our guest at the desk.
Hi Keith, thank you for having me here at the museum, but just had a fabulous morning.
Because you've been in it.
We've been in it. We were down at Barrett Reserve like at 6:30 this morning. I'm very fortunate to be the navigator in a beautiful 1968 E-Type Jaguar, which belongs to my husband, and it's a beautiful car. We just got down there this morning, and the camaraderie amongst the entrants really was something special. We were keeping our social distancing, but there was a lot of car envy going on, like drooling. I had to wipe a couple of spots off the front of our car. But so many beautiful cars. You know what the thing that struck me the most was how vibrant cars used to be. There were yellows and reds and purples and greens, and everything was bright, and some even iridescent. Because these days everyone has a white car or a silver car. We've got a bit boring, haven't we?
Yeah, that's right. Well, Heather Crowell, the director of the Fringe, she's coming up in a gold Volvo.
Oh,
that's pretty special.
That is pretty amazing. That really says something about Heather.
I don't think that was it. That couldn't have been driven by a man with a hat. Because that's the old saying, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
No, that
wouldn't work.
No, that wouldn't work.
And the other thing that struck me was, even though we're sort of saying to people they can watch it on Channel 44, is the number of people on the side of the road that were waving to us. And I think my left arm is almost frozen as I wave to a lot of the people along the way coming up the road. You can see the vision now coming up through the Adelaide Hills.
Yeah.
And people have been out there since early this morning. At about 9 o'clock, just after we'd left Tea Tree Plaza area, I saw two ladies, well dressed, sipping white wine. 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I think that's pretty special. But I think everyone has embraced this because, as you said, 3 months ago we weren't sure if it was even going to happen, and now we've been able to live stream it. People even interstate and overseas have been able to share this, and then you can watch it on Channel 44 as well. So it's just amazing.
Now it is rumoured, you were in the very first one 40 years ago.
I was indeed, and I was 40 years younger. Yes. And I actually don't have any photos or vision of me in it, but I, in those days, was the hostess on Early Birds with Fat Cat, and Fat Cat and I were in a big red fire truck. And
there you are.
That's actually from 86.
Oh,
so
right.
by then I was working for the ABC, and Neil Phillips was a co-worker at the ABC, and we drove up in his model Ford, his 1928 model Ford. His wife actually loaned me that outfit with the two fox heads hanging over my shoulders.
So,
I'm not sure about that anymore.
No, well, that's right. You are setting off the Model T beautifully.
So that was 1986. So that would have been like the fourth time the event was run.
It is also recorded that you've been a winner of some kind.
Not in the Bay of Birdwood, but the E-Type Jaguar has won a Concours d'Elegance with the South Australian chapter of the Jaguar Club. So it is a very beautifully presented car. There's also there's Randall with us. We got the award last year. This was another award we picked up in the Variety Moto Run, which is a fundraiser for Variety SA. And look at that car. You could almost do your hair in it, Keith. It looks incredible, doesn't it?
Yes.
So we picked up the best presented car for that. We also, when my son Joseph got married, we tied some white ribbons on it, and Randall drove Joseph to his wedding in Harndorf in the E-Type Jag, and they certainly turned a few heads that day.
Yeah.
It is a car.
So it has that's not just an historic vehicle. That's history in your family.
Oh, well, look, it has lots of little history things. The second date that Randall took me on was in the E-Type Jag, so he was trying to impress.
It worked.
It worked. And then he even bought me the red leather jacket to go with it. So I always wear this red leather jacket when I'm in the E-Type Jaguar.
Isn't it lovely to see the commercial vehicles, as Martin said? We've got a truck coming through. In fact, what's the one behind it there?
I think that's a modern day one. We got a few ring-ins along the way.
Well, the roads are open, that's right.
So we had to share the road along the way. But there were so many different vehicles. There's some beautiful ones coming through now. But how about the weather for the event? Didn't we get that totally right?
Wouldn't it
Look
have
at
been
those
like
shots
Friday,
now.
would it?
Oh no, that would have been dreadful. I mean, the risk of hail. You would be very hesitant about putting some of those cars out in hail.
With our Wednesday bike ride mob, we did the Amy Gillett ride on Wednesday.
Oh, you're brave.
And it was okay, but gee, it was cold, and it was very windy, and that can have an effect if you're driving a 1908 Talbot.
Well, especially some of those high top ones. They do move around a little bit.
Yeah. No, fantastic, and there was just a little touch of mist about early morning up here at Birdwood, and the Adelaide Hills are in absolute fine form. Now, speaking of the Adelaide Hills, as you know, this year you're not hanging about here.
No.
We're going to send you off to have lunch or maybe
We've got a picnic.
Taste something. Where are you going?
Well, we haven't quite found out. We've got a rug, we've got a thermos, we've got sandwiches, we've got some nibbles.
Okay, so suggestions. Well, you could head to maybe the National Park or the Botanic Gardens at Mount Lofty.
Actually, the Botanic Garden with some blossom in the trees, and that would be really lovely. Yeah. And there's so many options through the Adelaide Hills, the wineries, and the place like Harndorf would be fantastic to go, especially if you're meeting up with friends. A lot of people will finish the event and then meet with friends elsewhere through the Adelaide Hills. So I think it's great that we're sharing the love and getting people out and about through this wonderful region.
Someone like you who's been involved for so long in the media, you've worked for all 14 stations twice, I think, haven't you? Well, I've only worked half of them. but
just about, and if you could include the radio stations as well.
Exactly, where we work together. How on earth we get up for breakfast radio all those years? You still do it a bit.
Oh, only a little bit of recorded stuff. I don't get up early.
The secrets are coming out. It's recorded these days.
Some of the stuff. I mean, I'm officially retired. I'm officially retired.
Yeah, that'll happen.
And I highly recommend it.
But I was trying to reach the serious bit, which is that any of us have been involved have found something about the Royal Flying Doctor Service when we've worked, haven't we?
Yes, yeah.
And it's fantastic to have them as our charity partner this year.
Yeah, I really respect what they do, and being a person who's been on 18 variety bashes, it's always been reassuring to know that if something awful happens out there, out back, wherever we may be, and it's not always outback people in the city use Royal Flying Doctor Service if they're going for transplants or whatever. It's nice to know that they're there and that they're there to look after us. A very close friend of mine.
I'll have a look at this. We just happened to see a Mini at the right moment, a red Mini.
Oh, 1969.
Yes.
So it's a year older than our little E-Type. There's something about that red, isn't it? It's so
they
cute.
They go faster. That's the theory, I hear.
And look at the vibrancy of that yellow.
Well, that'll go fast.
And there's a ute going through in a pale blue. The colours, that's what really struck me today, was the variety of colours that we're seeing. But back to Flying Doctor Service, they do a fantastic job, and it's just nice to know that they're there, and it's great that this event is supporting them. Entrance fees have gone towards that, and people also are being asked to make a donation. If you would like to donate and help Royal Flying Doctor Service, you never know who that person may be that is helped by their wonderful service.
How about that for a mix? There's a bit of a hold-up. I wonder where we are. We've got to say, Jono and Mark are out as our camos today. The director's just given them a flag and said, you're getting some great
I know where we are because we've just been there. So we've just come off the main road and we've just turned left behind the Birdwood Mill Museum or National Motor Museum.
They're here.
They're here. And then you've got to do this right turn and form two lanes. And then you get the volunteers out there, the SES volunteers, CFS doing a great job. Then you get directed into which zone you're going to park into. So
it's a huge operation.
Oh, it's so well organised. Impressive. And then you can have a quick comfort stop, and then we're being encouraged, as you mentioned, to head off and explore the Adelaide Hills and all around this region. I mean, not far from here is Williamstown. There's a fantastic bakery there.
Now, when you start talking bakeries...
Maybe we won't have the sandwiches and we'll go and get a pasty.
Well, you've got Loberthal, you've got Woodside, you've got oh my goodness. You could be up here for a week just eating pasties.
We do a pasty survey. We keep a little note.
Here we go.
And we give them a score out of 10.
Who's winning at the moment? It's been a good
there's
year.
one at Millington on York Peninsula, got a 9 out of 10.
Well, there you go. So there could be more of that work today after your picnic, maybe after you could switch to Kitcheners later on.
Oh, I'm not a cream girl, unfortunately. No, I'm a savoury girl.
That reminds me, it's a pretty obscure leap, but the Kitchener bun was once Berliner.
Yes.
And we changed it, didn't we,
in World War I?
Just as we changed the name of Birdwood.
From...
Here's a test for you.
Wasn't Germantown?
No. Bloomberg.
Oh, that's very German.
Isn't it? Yeah, and because there are a couple of little Bloomberg references here. And it was, I only discovered this the last couple of days, having a bit of a read around this, that there's a bit of a connection between Loberthal, which we know as German settlers coming in, Silesian settlers, and then when some of them went up to start in the Barossa Valley at Bethany, they came through here. And so Pastor Fritz suggested to some of the settlers, there's a really good spot on the island.
Yeah, beautiful place.
And thus another little German village begins. Now, as we head towards a lovely set of different pieces of old vision there's a bit of a story as to how it happened.
Yes, this is some vision from actually 1980, and yesterday I spoke to the director of this vision, a guy called John Francis, and the vision was shot on one camera, and there was no live links, there was no mobile phones. They had to get the helicopter to take the videotape back to Channel 10, SAS Channel 10 that used to be there at Hackney, and then they played it out that night in the news. No live streaming, nothing like we've got today. So technology...
No mobile phones,
No, none of that.
Well, that's what we're going to see now. Let's have a look back over 40 years of the Bay to Birdwood.
In 1980, the first running of the Bay to Birdwood, I can actually remember standing on the side of the road, watching the vehicles go by and thinking to myself, you know, wow, I'd love to be involved in that. It's such a fantastic event. Had you told me when I was a young lad standing on the side of the road that one day you'd be the chair of that, I'd have thought, oh, you know, died and gone to heaven, that'd be too good.
Sunday, September 28, 1980 is a day that all of Adelaide will remember for the staging of the inaugural Bay to Birdwood run.
It was interesting. It was a time when sort of the museum had just been taken over by the government. The motoring movement, which had come together, had its own organisation, liked starting off the run season for summer.
One of the organisers of the event decided to have it in September because of the commemoration of the first issuing of a driver's licence, and there it stayed pretty much ever since.
So today you would see the earliest vehicles, 1904 I think is the oldest one we've got registered, right through to 1990. But it's a good showcase of history, of motoring history.
Bringing people out like Michael Parkinson in '84, that garnered lots of publicity, and it had a high profile, and in world terms it was a reasonably big motoring event.
Technically we're the longest continuously running motoring event of its kind anywhere in the world.
It is quite unique, and I think to some extent every South Australian, in fact every Australian, should be really excited and proud of this event.
I think it's a well-known fact now in Australia that South Australia has the greatest number of historic vehicles per capita.
There's a couple of theories around that. One is climate. We are quite conducive to not rusting. It's a good climate for preservation of vehicles. And there's a lot of theory that the early Anglophile population of Australia sort of liked their British vehicles. And so South Australia's got the Goldilocks city for running such an event.
Even though the roads are more difficult than they were, it's still something you couldn't organise in any other state. Melbourne has tried.
I think no other event anywhere in the world does the city embrace the event as well as what we do here at Adelaide. I think also, as much as this is about the story of the people as the vehicles, we also judge things like how the driver and passengers are presented, how they're dressed. So it is more of a cultural event that talks about people. It's a bit of what we call a bucket list event. You really want to, this is the event to do before you die or see before you die. Unlike other historic competitions, these vehicles aren't just brought to a place and judged. These are judged, but they also have to complete the 72 kilometre or whatever it is course.
But the Bay to Birdwood has this amazing parade of motoring history, from the earliest days of motoring to sort of relatively recent. And you see them not in a museum, but moving, travelling as cars did.
You had to be on the sides of the road to watch it go past you. You don't get to see these objects because they're in people's garages, but there's hardly any other place where you'll actually get to see the citizen collection on display.
Having all those people from the general population watch you go past, I think is a real big draw card for people, you know. It's nice to have your passion recognised and celebrated.
So it's not just about the fancy cars, it's about the ordinary cars that are meaningful to people, that hold their stories.
And what you start to see, not always, but sometimes, is that start to pass down the generations, where the father has now passed away and the son's got the car, and you kind of hope that eventually they'll come back and go, you know what, I remember enjoying this as a kid and now I enjoy it again. So I want to bring my kids. So then you start seeing 3 generations.
This isn't easy. This is 72 kilometres of windy hill roads, and it's tough on the driver, it's tough on the vehicle.
There are now 3 times as many traffic lights with stops as there were in the early 80s. In terms of large numbers of old cars travelling from Glenelg up to Birdwood, that makes an amazing difference. Every time they stop, they've got to start again, we hope.
And sadly, you sort of smile as you drive past somebody else who's on fire or whatever, and you go, God, lucky that wasn't us, and it's sort of, you have that terrible mixed emotion where you think, gee, we're lucky that's not us today. This is a challenge, and I reckon anybody who finishes that event, it's actually a great achievement.
Not only is the Bay to Birdwood a significant event for the History Trust, and not only is it a significant event for the National Motor Museum, it is a significant event for South Australia, and it is through that and through the success over now many decades, it is a significant event for Australian automotive history.
One of the great things of the Bay to Birdwood is the people who organised it have actually expanded that community and got more and more people involved. And as a result, it hasn't burnt out, it hasn't lost its momentum. And that's one of the reasons for its 40 years of success.
On the last Sunday of September in Adelaide, you definitely know the Bay to Birdwood's on. In 1980, when you entered the Bay to Birdwood, there were vehicles that were just being birthed, just being manufactured, that are now in the Bay to Birdwood, and we're celebrating those as historic vehicles.
Some of the things that I love about the Bay to Birdwood are, yes, we know it's for historic motor vehicles and their owners, it's all about them, but it's so much more. It's about the public of South Australia. So it's inclusive. It's an event for all of us to participate in, either at the start, finish, on the route, in a vehicle, or now live streamed.
Yeah, it's our 40th anniversary. Thank you. It's a happy anniversary, Bay to Birdwood.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's,
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years. But we still need your help. Donate today.
We are delighted to be in association with the Royal Flying Doctor Service. We hope you'll donate today. There are lots of ways to doing it. Just search for Bay to Birdwood and you'll find your way to that. At the desk today with the Model T Ford behind me and Jane Riley at my side. Here we are watching the vehicles coming up. It's been a terrific morning.
It has been. Look, just being on the run for a start has been amazing with all the other cars and the people. Thank you to everyone who came out and waved to us and set up their barbecues and did all that sort of thing as well. It was just fantastic to see.
It was one of the sort of rules this year was that, nobody at the start and nobody here at the finish, because the Motor Museum is closed.
Because of COVID-19, yes.
Exactly. And people weren't encouraged to gather in very large groups, but on the other hand, get the deck chair out.
Yeah, they're all social distancing, and you could tell they were family groups, and some of them had their dogs on their laps, and as I mentioned before, a couple of ladies that were having a glass of white wine and enjoying the passing parade. But it was a really special thing to see. But while we've had a pretty smooth one today, did you hear what happened to Randall's E-Type back in 2008?
This is starting to ring a bell. It was not smooth at all.
No, this was before I was on the scene. This is in 2008. Randall was taking part in the Adelaide Classic Rally with a dear friend of his, and they rolled it. Randall wasn't driving.
We're watching it roll.
But the navigator was driving, and it ended up on its lid, and every panel was damaged. So it's been fully restored since then, and that's why it's in such pristine condition.
So that's the same car?
That's the same car. Same car, every panel dinged.
We're just
watching it again. It's almost
now.
like in slow-mo.
Oh dear. Yeah.
And they ended upside down.
You told us about the car. How did the driver and the passenger
They were fine, but the hard part was getting out because they were actually upside down, like wearing the harness seatbelt. So trying to open a door upside down is a really tricky thing to do. But now that we've shown it there, today we've had thousands of viewings of it because everyone loves an E-Type. There's something about an E-Type. It's such a classic shape, and being a red one as well, it's just a beautiful car.
It's been, it's been the star of a movie or three. I mean,
Yes, James Bond.
Very glamorous car.
Yeah, very glamorous car. Some say it's the sexiest car in the world.
Is that? What is your feeling on this matter?
Well, I think she's very pretty. And I refer to her in the feminine form because there's something very feminine about her.
We were talking earlier about how Channel 10, who were the partners for the very first event 40 years ago, had one camera, had to get the stuff back. Now we chuck the drone up and
those drones are amazing.
Yeah.
We saw that on the side of the road just outside Inglewood. We saw them setting up the drone there, and the vision they're getting is just incredible. But yeah, technology means that we can, give you these amazing pictures of today's fabulous event.
And then send them around the world.
Yeah.
Thanks to a whole lot of people behind the scenes.
This could become a destination event for other people once all our restrictions start to back off and people can visit from overseas.
We're hoping so. Martin Hazy, as a former chair, is very confident that it will grow from here.
It could become like the Goodwood in the UK.
Yeah.
That big event.
The old London and Brighton, where it all...
The big motoring.
50s, they even made a movie about it.
Yes, they did.
Did you see Genevieve as a kid?
Yes.
It's lovely to have you with us today.
Thank you, Keith.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Got here. Enjoy your picnic this afternoon.
We will indeed.
Wherever you may go. We're going back now to the Gully Hotel, where if you've been with us for a while now, you would have seen Jack Muster and his Indian, the marvellous motorcycle. He's a local, actually. He's got as far as that, and he's got as far as Laney Anderson.
They made a movie about that too, didn't they?
Welcome back to the Gully, where you're about to meet a man who needs absolutely no introduction to Birdwood residents. It's Jack Muster in his 1927... 24. Thank you, Jack. 1924. Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Girls got to get these things right. 1924 Indian Chief. How are you, Jack?
Very well, thank you.
How's she going today?
Really good, and it's great to stop here just for a little bit of a spill.
We're thrilled that you did.
It gives me time to have a piece of metwurst. I got some already sort of on the cook here. It's really well done. It's not too bad. Just a bit of a break.
Jack, I'm thinking that's not olive oil down there on the engine, mate.
No, well, it doesn't really matter. It all adds to it.
Bit of extra flavour.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. You've got to have Mount Pleasant metwurst. It's the best.
Mount Pleasant, of course.
Mount Pleasant
Nothing but the best.
I'll show you. I've got a... Would you like a piece?
I might have a bit like that. I'm certainly not going to have that.
No, well, that's all right. Okay, but Mount Pleasant, best metwurst ever. I've got a few things. Look, you don't need much here. I've got a spare pair of undies just in case. You never know.
I hope that's only to clean the engine.
No. I might end up in the Chain of Ponds Reservoir, and there's a corner there that does give me a lot of trouble.
Well, a boy can't be too careful, can he?
No, that's right.
And I noticed that your son and grandson are following along behind with a trailer.
Yes, I don't know why, but...
That's not very confident,
it's
is
the
it?
old farm trailer, but that's okay.
Has this bike been in the trailer before, Jack, on a Beta
Yes, it
Birdwood run?
has.
There you go.
It's quite used to it.
So they're
It's all
looking
right.
out for you.
Yeah.
Now, you've had this gorgeous beast for quite a while.
Yes, probably 55. I was 18 when I bought it, and I'm 75 now.
Wow.
So it's a few years, yep.
Did you have to save up? How much was it in those days? You're a rich boy.
I bought it off my neighbour that was a farmer, and he's having a rough spin, and he sold it to me. But it originally come from the SO Oil Company in Port Augusta.
Yes.
And local lads bought it from up there, and I took a liking to it, and I ended up with it.
It's absolutely beautiful, but it hasn't always been in your hands,
No,
has it? What happened?
It's amazing. This 40 years of the Beta Birdwood, exactly, I had it stolen just prior to that, out of my shed, and it really worried me. Who in the heck would pinch it? So I had a photo made up with all the details of it, and the old fella said, we'll get this back for you. And it wasn't long, and I was notified by the police, and they found the thing for me.
Wow.
But it was missing the carburettor. That was the only thing.
So all this time it's been missing.
Yes, and some mother must know that their sons are pinched, and it's probably on a wardrobe somewhere. And I'd like it back. You could drop it into the Birdwood mill any time you like, and nothing said. Just say, write Jack on it, and I'd love it to get it back. And my neighbour had a carburettor on an old oil engine, and he let me have it, and it's not too bad. It goes well.
Is this quite a gas guzzler, Jack?
No, it's absolutely marvellous.
Very economical.
No, look, I'll go 100 k's on that without any bother.
I love your paint job. Did you do this yourself?
No, the previous owner did that, and it's a pity in a way because it's not original. The original colour was this here.
Ah,
and it had black mudguards.
And how she's travelling well today?
Oh, marvellous. Yeah, no bother. I've got a couple of spare spark plugs in the back, but I won't need them, no.
And Jack, do you like the fact that all the vehicles from all eras are actually
well, it's great. It's
together
very
for the
well
first time?
organised the way they've done it. They've got the later model vehicles that move along pretty quick. They're out of the road, and now we've got the old ones hopping along enjoying it.
Fantastic.
And there's no trouble. Look, the people that go past in their newer cars, put your thumbs up, and look, it's enjoyable.
Good on you. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and chatting to us today,
Good on
Jack.
you. And you won't have a piece of metwurst.
I'll have some off air just in case things go wrong. Thank you, Jack.
Good.
And now we're going to learn a little bit more about these Concours d'Elegance and Preservation Awards, including a lovely meeting with last year's winner. So thanks very much. Thanks, Jack.
Good.
My name's Lucinda Osborne, and my role is the Director of Judges. The Beta Birdwood actually has two awards, so it's the Concours and also the Preservation Award. So the Concours d'Elegance is the ultimate sort of best in show award. So that's for the car that is the best example of itself, but it should look like it rolled out of the showroom, so showroom condition. We judge on everything with the paint, the interior, the engine bay. We also judge on the elegance of the vehicle, the design, the style of it.
To win the Concours d'Elegance at the Beta Birdwood, your vehicle has to do the route. And there's a component of the awards judging that goes to the driver and passengers being dressed up in period correct costume or clothing that matches the vehicle.
You know, the spectacle of all the people dressed up in the era of their vehicles is just wonderful to watch. If you look out over the green, you can see all the people dressed up, and everybody gets involved, the spectators, the entrants, the occupants. It's not about a dress up or a costume, it actually has to be the era of the vehicle. So if you've got a 1950s vehicle, it's not the idea is to dress up as Elvis or Marilyn Monroe, which we've had before. It's about dressing in the era, and unless Elvis owned that vehicle, you wouldn't be dressing up as Elvis. So it really is about what they would wear when they went for a drive in their car in that year, or the year of the vehicles.
So that makes the Concordia Elegance very different to everywhere else in the world. All the other Concordia Elegances in the world are brilliant badges of honor for the best vehicles displayed on the planet. The Beta Birdwood adds this mix of the citizen collector being in period correct costume, and that adds a very threshold of difference, which makes it special for the Beta Birdwood.
So the Preservation Ward is looking at the most original vehicle as possible. So we don't want to see a car that's had the paint respray. We don't want the new interior or the reupholstering done. So we want it to be absolutely as original as possible, and how it's been preserved over time. So the two awards will be judged on the Saturday, the day before. It's a very family-friendly event. I'm actually seeing more and more that we have females who own the vehicles and they're entering, and it's been a big shift that I've seen over the 20 years, so it's very exciting. I've seen the Beta Birdwood grow up from being more of a car club type event or run type of event where we had a committee, and now it's actually in the hands of the National Motor Museum and the History Trust. And I just think it's got so much future now. We've evolved, we've grown, we've left the parent, and the child's grown up, and so it's very exciting to see where it's going to go in the future. It's an event that I'm very passionate about. I've been involved for 20 years and I want to see lots of wonderful things happen to the event and get even bigger and more known across the world. So.
I'm Alvin. I'm a GP in Adelaide, South Australia. This is a 1957 BMW Isetta 300, actually a car that I bought on impulse on eBay. Put a maximum bid, went to sleep, woke up in the morning, and I ended up winning the auction, and it was delivered straight to my mechanic's premises. I didn't have the courage to do anything with it, so it sat on a pallet on top of my mechanic's dunny until one day I decided I'm going to send it up to a restorer I'd heard of. How bad could it be? Famous last words. So I reckon it cost me about 13 times what I paid for it. So it's been a labor of love, and as soon as it was completed, it was trucked over to Melbourne. It was put on the floor along with quite a few other gorgeous cars at Motoclassica, and it actually won Best Microcar in Australia as well. So I was stoked. Well, last year we decided to put it in the Beta Birdwood, and I think that trip was probably one of the longest, slowest trips I've ever done in my life. This car is only a 300cc single-cylinder engine, and I could not get it past 45 km per hour. Going uphill in certain sections, I could not get it past 15 kilometers per hour. I was holding up traffic for miles. There was even a slow vehicle turn-off where there were a group of bikers sitting there, and they jovially said, "Hey, need a push, mate?" And I kind of hinted to them, I said, "Actually, could you hook it up to one of your bikes? You've got a bigger engine than mine. It could probably do with a tow." When I found out that I'd won, I was grinning from ear to ear. It wasn't until after the event that I kind of realized, oh my God, this is a big deal. So after winning the event, surprisingly made it out of the car park of the Motor Museum before the car literally died just outside the entrance of the museum, and the car has pretty much stayed where it is at the museum since the event on that day. I guess to this day my wife still doesn't know how much it's cost, and I think it's best staying that way.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's,
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years. But we still need your help. Donate today.
as we've said before, it's great to have the Royal Flying Doctor as our charity partner. We do hope you'll donate. We hope you'll join us on social media too. Hashtag Beta Birdwood 2020. Love to hear where you are, what you're seeing, what you'd like to know about, and so on. Lots of people are heading into the Adelaide Hills today, and our next guest is doing that, but she's played an extremely important role in making this thing happen. She's also now a familiar face to all South Australians, Dr. Nicola Spurrier. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, welcome. What a wonderful day.
And you're in it, of course. You have not just turned up, you've come up the right way.
I have had the most amazing morning. I've been in a Hudson 8 and I can't tell you how exciting it was. It was exhilarating. A little bit chilly, but just perfect.
Yeah, and the Hudson performed well?
Oh, went like a dream. It could have had a bit more, zoom if we could have got out on the open road. Yeah. Yes, it was fantastic.
Is it your first Beta Birdwood?
Yes, it is, yes.
Oh, well, so there's a small payoff with it being in the middle of what is an extraordinary century, probably a crisis of the century, we hope so at least.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's been a lot of work for my team and I, and it was just to be able to come out this morning and have a ride in that car was lovely. Thank you.
As we've mentioned before, 3 months ago, this was only a maybe, and many of the vehicles didn't know they could be in it until perhaps a few weeks ago. This live streaming event wasn't even a glint in anybody's eye at that stage. When did you start working with the National Mountain Museum and Beta Birdwood team to see if it could come together?
Yeah, so one of my deputies, Dr. Chris Lees, he's been instrumental in working with the Beta Birdwood team, and it's taken a lot of work, but it's been meticulous, the planning that's been put into place in terms of today.
So these vehicles, of course, these lovely vehicles that we're looking at out on the road, they started at the same place, Barrett Reserve, but in a quite different way this year.
Yes, so my understanding is normally with the Beta Birdwood there's quite a large event at the beginning and also at the end, but today rather than have that large event, everybody was given their own place to be and their own time to be, and people needed to stay in their cars more or less, and so it was very COVID safe from that perspective.
I mean, we didn't tell anybody that you were going to be in it, and that's a good idea because it's about the vehicles and these wonderful collectors, but you couldn't help yourself. You would have been on duty this morning.
Oh, look, I'm always looking out for physical distancing and, the hand hygiene. And but it was very well organised from that perspective. When I came, I had to sign in and I had to say a declaration that I wasn't unwell and hadn't been in a COVID, risk area.
We did it this morning, early up here.
Yes,
everybody's done
absolutely.
it. The London cabbie's done it.
Excellent to hear.
And then, of course, when you get here, normally you would have seen the pictures at least.
Yes.
A giant picnic here that goes on with up to 1,500 vehicles reaching down towards the Onkaparinga here behind the National Motor Museum at Birdwood. Again, different rules.
Yes.
But you came up with something that would work.
Yes. Well, I think it really is a credit to the Beta Birdwood organisers to think around, out of the box, think outside the square. And what they came up with was rather than everybody congregate here, was that we would have an ability for people to get out and have a rest stop. But then to carry on into the Adelaide Hills. And so the idea was that you would book somewhere in the Adelaide Hills to have your lunch, and indeed that's what I've done as well. And that means...
You're going to tell us?
I've managed to get a seat at the Scenic Hotel at Norton Summit, a favourite of mine, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Well, it's all about booking in the hills at the moment.
It is,
particularly
yes.
on the weekend.
Yes.
One of our favourite spots is right on top of the ridge, Pike and Joyce Wines.
Oh, lovely. Beautiful.
But, that's always full, and it's wonderful to see the tourism in the Adelaide Hills now reviving.
Absolutely.
Really coming to life.
And coming through this last little stretch was, of course, where some of the bushfires had come through. So really to see the community coming back to life and of course, being able to support tourism. So I think that really is a spin-off on the new way that this has been run today.
Yeah, so motorbikes, always part of the collection here, always part of the Beta Birdwood. And there's a very happy chap there. I wonder where he's going for lunch. He might, I don't want to typecast him, but he might be going to try out some of the craft ales.
Well, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although he might say, no, I'm a Chardonnay type of person.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of that in the Adelaide Hills. But back to the serious side of things. This event has been rescued in a sense by a whole lot of good planning. Does it stand out for you as you look internationally at the way things are done?
Look, I think we have been very, very fortunate in Australia. We closed our borders, and so we didn't have the huge waves and waves of this infection go across Australia as they have had in other countries. And that's meant that although we had that initial shutdown, and people will remember that, it was very difficult, particularly for people running businesses, we were able to get on top of the numbers in South Australia, get on top of the cases, and now we're able to enjoy and go back to enjoying a wonderful lifestyle. So we still need to stay COVID safe, and this is exactly what the Beta Birdwood has shown us we can do today.
Well, it's lovely having you with us. I'm glad you made it so well. And there have been a couple of questions about how did you come up looking, so beautifully groomed and so on when you're in the open air a bit?
Oh, I've got a fantastic hat, wide brim, with a big scarf.
Oh,
just perfect.
I think you mentioned Mrs. Fisher earlier. You felt like you'd just gone back a few decades.
I felt like I was like Fernie Fisher, out there on the open road, going to look for a crook.
Well, enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Nicholas Berrier, who has been behind, of course, the success of controlling the coronavirus in South Australia, along, as she credits, along with a great team in public health here. Well, now we're going to go and revisit someone who is really part of the fabric of motoring history in South Australia. If I mention the Grand Prix, and I mention the bloke who started it with the checker flag and then has gone on to be associated with every motoring event since, including the Beta Birdwood, Glenn Dix got the checkered flag out again especially for us. Let's meet him again now.
Adelaide's legendary flag waver, Glenn Dix.
I got interested in Speedway through one of the chaps I worked with. He got me to join the Racing Drivers Association. Kimber was running Rowley Park as an entertainment venue, and it had to be rapid fire entertainment.
Dix, how are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm great, thanks, Fletch, and this will be my 21st Beta Birdwood. 64 years, that's a fair effort, I think.
It's a long time to be turning up and waving the flag.
Well, it is, but okay, if you can do something that makes some people happy or somebody happy,
yes,
or be excited about what's going on,
yes,
I believe you've achieved something. The Grand Prix to me was an opportunity that I never ever thought I would achieve. I couldn't believe that. And that was my challenge, and my presentation, dressed myself like an entertainer. Not that I went out to be a show-off, but people came to be entertained, and that was my aim. The first Beta Birdwood that I can recall started right in the main street of Glenelg. And I can remember somebody come to me after I'd been flagging for quite a while, and they said, "You're not going to flag them all off, are you?" And I said, "Well, why not?" My reason for that is whether it be a circuit race or whether it be the Beta Birdwood, the competitors have all tried hard to present their vehicle in good racing condition, in perfect display condition. Why shouldn't they all get the same treatment? Checkered flag doesn't mean you're the winner. It means you've finished the event. And if you've finished the event, why shouldn't you get the same treatment as the winner? I've been involved in the Beta Birdwood for a good number of years, and I haven't been involved in it for a few years now. Like, I haven't given up support, but the body tells you that, okay, it's time to rest. I still have an interest in the Beta Birdwood, and it's good that those people with those cars get an opportunity to show them off in front of the thousands of people that are along the way. I didn't set out to make myself a national hero. People came to be entertained, and I was there to present that entertainment to them.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's,
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover.
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years. But we still need your help. Donate today.
The Royal Flying Doctor Service, our charity partner, and this is live streaming of the Bay to Birdwood 40th anniversary run, and it's different in many, many ways. We hope that you'll tell us what you're thinking about it, what you're seeing, what you'd like to know. Text us on Bay to Birdwood 2020. Now, earlier on, if you have been sticking with us in the comfort of your armchair, if you've been watching, you might have seen Dr. Toby Coates and his car, which has never quite made it. He told the story that in the family it's called Voldemort. It's it's the car that shall not be mentioned. Well, we are very pleased to announce that he's right here. Dr. Toby Coates has made it in the standard 1927.
We made it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Keith.
This has probably been weighing on you for some time. Just, will I get here?
About 2 years since the last time I didn't make it. So I was very, very, very pleased to get over the line today. It was great.
What happened in the past?
Well, we actually blew a universal joint just outside of Gumaraka last time. So we were within about 3 to 4 kilometres of actually getting here. So we saw the finish line on the back of the dial tow truck, but they still wouldn't give me the plaque because I hadn't actually come across the line, which is disappointing. But anyway, that's how it goes.
Now, tell us a bit more about this. Should we say this? Well, it's perhaps not always a happy relationship between the family and the vehicle.
I think it's become a tolerated relationship, is how I would put it. It started as the car that could not be named. I think really because of the disruptions to family holidays and a little bit of extra money that went into it, and a bit of time that was not spent perhaps doing other things that were desired to be done. So it's just one of those things.
Now that you've got here, the pressure's off.
Yes.
Do you take it out for a run occasionally?
Well, I think with vintage and classic cars, you need to run them about once a week if you can.
Yeah.
That's the ideal, and so we have drive it day with the cars, at least once a week. So yeah, it does a good job, and it's currently living in Balhanna. So there are 52 wineries in the Adelaide Hills, and we're basically knocking off every week one at least.
That is a splendid task.
Oh, it's hard work. But
It's actually a wonderful and not so old aspect of the Adelaide Hills.
That's
I
true.
can remember back in the 1980s, it might have been at 70s at the very earliest, when young Crozer, Brian Crozer, one of the sort of young Turks of the era, decided to buy the old mill at Bridgewater.
Yeah.
Have you ticked that off yet?
I haven't done it with this car yet.
No, okay, so the Bridgewater Mill, and he's going to make cool climate wines, and people thought he was mad.
Yeah.
It was too cold, it was too wet, and now, 52 wineries later, he was proved extremely right.
The Tapanapa that he's got up there, the Chardonnay from Tapanapa is unbelievable.
I can see you probably know as much about your wines as you do about your vehicle.
Probably too much.
Now, there's a nice other aspect of the vehicle and your work, your professional work as a rental specialist. Just what's that connection?
Well, I find it's a very good way to connect with well, not just with men, but with people, because obviously it shows that you've got a bit of a human side, and when you talk about the fact that it fails to do a few things and the marital disharmony that it causes, it can help break the ice, and people I think feel perhaps you're not quite so intimidating, if I can put it that way. It's a good way to connect.
I suppose, we take it a bit for granted. We know you're in good hands and so on, but it's pretty scary. You're at the very serious end of medicine, aren't you?
Yeah. So I'm Director of Transplantation at Royal Adelaide, and it is certainly most of my patients would be well aware of this car and various other people along the way, because it's a good way to connect with people.
And as we've mentioned earlier, when you see a wonderful old roadster like that we're looking at now, then presumably people bring their stories of cars with them.
Oh, they do, and everybody's got a story, everybody's got a connection. We've got a Morris Minor as well, and when I drive that, people stop you in the street because everyone's got a Morris story.
Is that a Rolls? Look at that,
looks like it,
just sliding through.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Oh, and there's the Armstrong Siddeley, that's made it.
Yeah,
we met that earlier on along the road.
Fantastic.
The chauffeur-driven vehicle, now the
very nice.
vehicle. Now, I would be taking a wild guess here. Is that an Oldsmobile? I'll get my expert to tell me what it is. He might have just missed it, but it's one of those classic 20s vehicles, isn't it?
I think it is an Oldsmobile, actually.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
We're lined up now. We're back towards the finish, and so you've been there, and we're crossing to Michelle Toft now, who is a former curator here at National Motor Museum. She's at the finish somewhere here at Birdwood.
Hi Keith, I'm here at the finish line of the Bay to Birdwood. It is fantastic. The atmosphere is amazing. This is the best view of the vehicles at the finish here. Get to see somebody coming past. Congratulations, you made it. So there's a feeling of relief when you get to the finish line, because some of the older vehicles, there's a bit of a struggle, and if you'll make it up the hill, but you've accomplished it. Great drive, good time. One gentleman I spoke to before said his hair wasn't grey when he started the route, but now it is, and that just shows you that it is a bit of a challenge with some of the older vehicles. You're steering and you're getting there, but they've all made it here, and it's a huge accomplishment. Have a look at some of these vehicles. We've got beautiful ones. Got a Holden here, good work, you made it. Holdens actually were the most registered vehicles this year. Ford was coming in second, but have a spot. Alfa Romeos are the rare ones. So if you spot an Alfa Romeo on the route, that's a rare one. Got some beauties here. And I love having the children in the back of the seat. It's different generations getting into the event, which is fantastic. Did you enjoy the ride? Excellent. Congrats, you made it to the end. What was that, sir? Takes on no. Good work. You made it to the end. We've got some fantastic vehicles here. Beautiful colours. And unfortunately, one down the road a bit there has actually overheated, but that's the reality of the event. But they've actually at least made it to Birdwood, which is fantastic. Do you have a horn there, sir? There we go. This is great. So we've got an Austin there, and that is wonderful having all these vehicles here today. And we'll take you, have a bit of a view. You're looking over the finish here. Got some Austins. We have some trucks. We've got some Fords coming along here. 1926 Rugby. Congratulations, you made it to the end. Good work. Was it a challenge for you, sir? No worries, too easy. Last year I actually drove one of the vehicles in the event, a Dodge Phoenix, and I did have some challenges when I was doing it. I accidentally left the handbrake on for a tiny bit of the route, but I made it to the end, and yeah. Excellent, we might turn it back, going back to you, Keith, and great down here at the finish line, great atmosphere.
Thanks very much. That's good-looking cars coming through, all sorts of vehicles coming through, because this year, if you've just joined us on this live streaming event, the 40th anniversary of the Bay to Birdwood, you're seeing a much greater mixture. In fact, this may be the future of the run, we don't know, but just look how strong the cars are. Beautiful vehicles. This is at the finish, as Michelle's just told us. Now we're back in the studio, inside the National Motor Museum. Because of this coronavirus era, nobody here in the museum itself today, and the people outside are only staying for a short picnic, including this fella. It's lovely to welcome the director of the South Australian Museum, Brian Oldman.
Good to meet you, Keith.
Good to see you. Did you come up in a car?
I did indeed. I came up in a magnificent 1970 MGB, bright red, the classic English sports car, and it came up those Adelaide hills wonderfully well. It eats hills. It works that well.
Yes. Is that your first run?
No. I've been in South Australia for 7 years, and this is my 7th Bay to Birdwood. I've been in every year, and I've joined every single one of them.
You see, being the director of the South Australian Museum means you've got contacts in all sorts of games, including this one.
I have indeed, yeah. It's a great team who run the National Museum here at Birdwood, and they've got an amazing collection, which I really recommend everybody to come and see. And yeah, it gives you some great connections in the world that I inhabit, and it's great to have my 7th year at the Beta Birdwood because it's a sensational pageant.
One of the things that directors of museums around the world are thinking about is how we transform museums and take them well into the 21st century. In a way, this is both an old event and possibly even an event of the future, isn't it? Because the citizen collectors are here in numbers.
Yeah, well, you've absolutely hit it on the head because, you know, museums have collections, and here at Birdwood there's a magnificent collection. But the thing about vintage and classic cars is its social history, and most of those collections are held by private individuals.
Like these people giving us away.
Exactly.
Yes.
They're held by private individuals who that vehicle is their pride and joy, and they're sharing it today with tens of thousands of people who are coming up all around the roads from West Beach up into the Adelaide Hills and Birdwood.
Right, and the sheer range as they arrive is just wonderful, isn't it?
Yes.
So there's an older G than you came up with. Yeah.
Indeed, yeah.
And one of your Morris Minors that you love so much.
The Morris Minor, yeah. My father had a Morris Minor, which sadly had to sell when I was born because it was too small for 3 children. So yeah. We had
personal connections.
Personal connections to a Morris Minor. Yeah.
Brian, welcome to Birdwood, and glad you made the trip today again.
Thank you for inviting me, and it's a sensational event. Great day.
We're going to go back to Lainey Anderson now at the Gully Hotel.
Here's a couple who absolutely destroy the stereotype that Volvo drivers are dull. It's Nick Phillips and Heather Kroll from the Adelaide Fringe. Welcome, guys.
Hello, how are you?
How has the drive been so far?
Oh, so good. Yeah, amazing. So many great cars.
And are you loving the old and the new, the mix?
Yeah, perfect mix.
Some of them are, late 1800s. They look like a buck on wheels. It's amazing how they're trundling along.
I know, and I actually am in awe of you all that you take these vehicles on the road and don't mind the idea that they might get a little bit scratched. Or maybe you do.
And we've seen a few breaking down on the side of the road, and it's lovely. Everyone's helping out, opening the bonnet, and then off they trot again. We even saw a steam car going along. Have you seen that one?
No.
Steam blustering out everywhere.
Oh, beautiful.
It's unbelievable.
So you guys are Volvo peeps from way back?
Volvo tragics from way back.
Excellent.
Yeah,
and when did you get this baby?
So this, up in Salisbury, we picked this up just on Gumtree.
Yes, we've
So
got
on
it.
Gumtree.
Bought it on Gumtree a few years ago. It was just a few $100s, and it didn't have any chrome or trim. It was very run down. And Nick was very enthusiastic. He joined the Volvo Club, and you can imagine what fun they have.
Are they lovely?
They are lovely, yeah.
And very helpful, I can imagine.
And they find all these chrome pieces.
Anything you want, they'll
I bet there's no bit of information that Volvo drivers do not know.
No, exactly.
Oh my God. So the old Volvo, the Volvo worst driver on the road and all that seems to have moved on a bit, but in the 80s it was very much the reputation, and even then I still had a Volvo, and I just love them.
Now that's all from the Gully today, so I hope everyone's had a fabulous time. We're throwing back to Michelle on Church Street to see what's happening in Birdwood. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Lainey. It's been fantastic having Lainey Anderson from the History Trust and from all of our other history pursuits and Sunday Mail pursuits and you name it, joining some of the people down at the Gully Hotel. Amazingly, we're coming towards the end of our coverage because we started about 8:30. Some of you might have joined us all the way through, but others will be dashing in and out and picking up this very different event this year. It's not the old Beta Birdwood, but it's a whole lot of other things as well, as you've seen live streaming to the world this time, with drones in the sky and mobile phones being used, and eventually everybody turning up here. I think we might be going to go back to Michelle Toft at some stage out at the finish. We may get to her, otherwise we're going to be heading in towards the run home, so to speak, as many of the vehicles are. They've arrived here at Birdwood. But we're just going to pay tribute again to our very important charity partner today, the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
Hello everybody, I'm Tony Vaughan. I'm the Chief Executive for the RFDS Central Operations. That's South Australia and all of the Northern Territory. Well, we're very excited today. We have been selected as the charity partner for the 40th anniversary of the Bay to Birdwood, and how fantastic for us to be selected as that charity partner, Australia's most trusted charity 8 years in a row. The Royal Flying Doctor Service has a rich history in Australia, particularly in rural and remote Australia. We commenced operations on the 15th of May 1928 when our founder, the Reverend John Flynn, who used to drive around in the outback in a 1926 Dodge buckboard. During his journeys he discovered that he really needed to do something about opening up the outback and providing medical and clinical support to those that lived and worked in the bush. Hence, on the 15th of May 1928, the RFDS was born. On the 17th of May 1928, we took off on our first flight from Cloncurry in Queensland. Fast forward to 2020, where we average 100 flights a day and provide services to people in rural and remote Australia in every 2 minutes. Last year, airlifting 335,000 patients across Australia with a fleet of aircraft of 78. And if you put all our resources together in Australia, we're actually the third largest airline in Australia, which is pretty amazing when all of those assets actually belong to the community, for the community. So events like today and fundraising things are really special to us because we put all of that money straight back to where we say it's going to be provided and support people who live and work in the bush. Thanks again for choosing the RFDS, Australia's most trusted charity, to be your charity partner for this year. We also like to reach out to the community and we thank everybody, particularly in these crazy times, for supporting the RFDS. We've transported more than 1,400 people with COVID or suspected COVID across Australia. So now more than ever, your support is vital to the Royal Flying Doctor Service.
We've always had a few cars. They're all special. The T-Bird.
Oh, that's mine.
The Combi for when we want to get away. The XR8.
It's going to be a classic.
They're all insured with Shannon's.
We've also got Shannon's home and contents cover,
which helps protect our automotive collectibles, tools and memorabilia in the home and garage. If you're motoring enthusiasts like us, it's got to be
Shannon's.
Shannon's. Insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
When help is far from reach, when hope is lost in an instant, a familiar face finds you, experience reassures you, and innovation carries you. The Royal Flying Doctor Service, saving lives for 90 years, but we still need your help. Donate today.
It has been great having the Royal Flying Doctor Service as our charity partner this year, and it's marvellous to see the chairman made it here to Birdwood. The Bay to Birdwood chair is indeed Michael Neal. Welcome, Michael.
It's always with historic motoring when you get to the end and you've actually made it and you've haven't broken down on the way. That's an achievement in itself, and for all 1,250 vehicles that make it here today, what a great achievement.
Yeah, it has worked very well. You haven't seen too many breakdowns today?
No, it's been a cracker day. I think
kindly weather,
very, very great weather, and to look at people out there and the smiles on their faces. I'm so glad we've been able to put this COVIDsafe event on this year. It's been fantastic.
It's been transformed necessarily, but it may also teach us about the future.
Yeah, look, I think one of the great things is here we are, one of the world's great historic motoring events, and we've been able to bring it to an audience right across the world. Anywhere where they've got an internet connection, we've got a live stream that they can access. So I think that's a fantastic move forward for the Bay to Birdwood.
So we couldn't get the Singapore mob this year, but this year. But we hope they'll be back because now they know what they'll be part of.
Yeah, they were here last year, and I think they can see it online. People all over the world, we'd love them to come down and just participate in this event in one way, even if it's just as a spectator or a passenger.
We're going to go back to Michelle Toft, who's at the finish here. She's in amongst the vehicles. Michelle.
Here we are in Birdwood at the finish line of the Bay to Birdwood, and with congratulations to all of the vehicles that have made it. You made it to the finish. Woo! It's been an incredible day, and even though things have been a bit different this year, I still feel like all the entrants have had a fantastic time and have enjoyed the scenery of the Adelaide Hills, which is beautiful and green right now. And I've spoken to a few entrants, and they're deciding what to do after they leave the Motor Museum. They're going to visit the cafes around in the country towns that we have up here and have lunch and things like that, have a picnic. It's an incredible, beautiful day, and I think it's fantastic that we are able to still do this event each year. And here we are from the finish line. Back to you, Keith.
The chair is in the studio with us. You don't get to do this without a lot of very important sponsors.
No, that's true, and I think Michelle was exactly right. We've put on an event today that hasn't lost the essence of the Bay to Birdwood, but it's been modified to be COVID compliant. We've had great assistance from our sponsors, the wonderful Shannons, who we've worked with for a long time. South Australian Tourism Commission, I know people are heading out to the Adelaide Hills soon after this. Auto Transformers, Antique, Tyres, Eastside Automotive, of course our media partners, The Advertiser, and these fantastic people, Channel44, who are helping us to do this live stream. Wonderful support from them. And our amazing charity partner, I think the Royal Flying Doctor Service and the vehicle actually opened up Outback Australia. So what a wonderful way that we've come together now in the Bay to Birdwood as our partner charity, the Royal Flying Doctor Service. I think that's a really appropriate relationship.
This is part of automotive history, of course. It's automotive history on the roll, but the Royal Flying Doctor Service takes us back to Beltana in the outback of South Australia, where John Flynn had that dream of a mantle of safety. And he needed some new technology like aeroplanes and pedal wirelesses to do it, and now we have this fabulous organisation. It's been great to have them with us.
Yeah, it is fantastic.
Well, it's you mentioned the Adelaide Hills. That's also been a kind of a new development and a wonderful development too, isn't it? That's basically, instead of staying here at the mill and the National Motor Museum, away they go.
And we've heard some fantastic stories about people who've got lunch plans.
Yes.
And they're all sort of finding their little groups and doing like really wonderful things.
Have you made a booking?
Well, actually, we're going to have a pork pie and a thing very soon afterwards.
I was going to say that's the other option, is the bakeries.
It's a big tradition in my
is that
French.
right?
Yeah,
if you make it, you get a pork pie.
Yeah, absolutely.
It sounds like exactly what we're talking about with having the Adelaide Hills on board and just creating that time for these beautiful vehicles, these wonderful families who run them and look after them and cherish them and give us this day in a way, isn't it? It's the people who make this day.
It is. It's not about solely the cars. It's about the stories of the people and the relationships that are connected to those cars, and that's what makes the Bay to Birdwood so special.
Michael Neal, thanks very much for your time, and thanks very much for joining us streaming the Bay to Birdwood 2020. It's been a privilege doing it for you. We hope you've enjoyed it.